Welcome to Threshold Saints Radio, the Grey Lodge. I'm borrowing that from you, Joseph. Friday Night Gnostic Mass, Corpse Cultures. I'm Jin the Ninja. I host a show called, obviously, Threshold Saints. And I'm a little bit of a notorious internet Twitter personality. Nearly at that threshold of 4,000 mutuals, which as the infamous podcaster, I forget his name. I know he was Blasian and like a big libtard, but the point is not about him. It's that he said, I think his name was CRK. Anyways, he said that if you have 4,000 Twitter followers, you just start to walk differently. The people start to DM you differently. So as I'm almost on the cusp of that, I just want to say it definitely would not have happened without this incredible space that, yes, I do curate, but it does not just happen through me. It happens in synthesis. This is a plus ultra space. We believe magic is real. We believe magic is in consent. And magic also happens in synthesis. So that is kind of the story of the Grey Lodge. We are a group of metamagicians. That's basically what I would say. We all have our different ideas of the world, our different kinds of hermeneutics that we prefer and that we engage with, but we all come together and we try and, create a Friday night Gnostic Mass, like a real circle, like something that you can, speculative Gnosticism, as we've always called it. Because that is what it is. And just like this is a speculative space, I should say that first. This is a speculative space. Everything we say here is speculative, whether we discuss politics or meta realities or alternative history or whatever we discuss, it's all speculative. But all that being said, I want to say I'm really blessed, honored, and extremely grateful that we have come together so much as a lodge. And it is people know who the fuck we are. Like, I was honestly on a panel. I'm not going to say who. It was not like a super famous podcaster, but it was like someone who has a bigger show than me. So they're like a medium show. And I was like, and they were like, yeah, Jane, I've caught some of your spaces. It's really fucking good. And I was like, yeah, you know what? They are really fucking good. And that's the reality. But we have done it all together, regardless of the challenges I've put forth before some of you, and also just the life challenges of like, do you want to participate or not? And it's all obviously about consent, but we make it work because we all come together. So that being said, that was a little meandering, but anyways, that's fine. It's kind of the flavor of the night. So obviously, I'm joined by my amazing co-host Joshua the Branch, veteran, legendary podcaster. Thank you so much. I'm going to let you guys all introduce yourself and plug all of your work. But let me just do some co-host shout-outs first. Obviously, Dr. Joseph Reed, doctor in air quotes, but truly a blessed friend and lodge member, and McLuhan Chair of Media Studies of the Grey Lodge. Thank you so much. Of course, we have, well, Mike just dropped, so I'll do, we'll do Mike when he comes back. But we'll do John right now because John is going to be a co-host, and John is actually a co-host, and him and I have spoken extensively about this. But the problem with John is that he is busy, like legit, and he has like a job that he can't really necessarily sit there for like 2 hours and talk shit about with us. He might have to go, so yeah, it kind of inhibits his ability to be with us. Okay, Mike just came back, so we'll bring Mike up. But so John is our resident Kiwi. We call him the Space Delph. Yes, I did start that name. It had nothing to do with anything sexual or anything like that. It honestly was just a funny. It's just because John is very buttoned up when you like kind of. I looked through his portfolio. He sent me his like work thing, and I was like, okay, I'll take a look at it. And so he sent it to me, and I was like, wow, John's really, like, he's fussy. Like, he's, like, buttoned up, dude. So I was like, yeah, you're kind of a DILF, but in that, like, I didn't mean it in, like, that way. I meant it more in, like, an old man way, but I I kind of repackaged it. Yeah, that's sales, right? Yeah, you have to just repackage the hard truths. I'm just kidding, John. Thank you so much for coming. Obviously, you're my friend and also a lodge member and also our resident astrologer. Um, I know but anyways, I mean, Mike's also an astrologer. I'm not trying to say that it's just John, but it's Matt as well. But John, we do value you and thank you so much. And you are Twitter famous now or Twitter notorious because you did kind of have a viral tweet. So good job, good fucking job. So, with that being said, okay, of course, Mike. Mike is our newest co-host, but he fits right in. We're just a group of weirdos, and it all works. It works. I don't know. It felt right, and it's felt right ever since. So, thank you so much, Mike. Really appreciate you. I know you didn't really know what you were going to get at first, but I think it's been super awesome, and I think it's great. I think we're at like we're kind of at like a perfect number, even. We're 7, but we're 8, but we're really all of the lodge. It's kind of interesting. Okay, so let me just shout out the 3. We'll call them. The co-hosts. The 3 co-hosts who are missing, but not gone. So of course we have brother. I came up with a really cool new name for him, and I've been telling myself all day. I was like, Jim, you can't fuck it up in the space. So it is my Dark Cell Hero Academia. That's his frater name. My Dark Cell Hero Academia. Because seriously, I he teases me and I tease him a lot, and he, truth is like, if you were really to weigh our relationship, he owes me, like I actually should take it a little more, in truth, but I have to give it back because I'm not really like that. Like I'm just am who I am. Okay. And so I'm just going to say he is the king. He is the king of lexical precision. If you go listen to that fucking Toby episode, he is a slaughterer of words and concepts. And I also really, I really care about him in like a strictly platonic, obviously, but just in the way that he literally has taken so much shit from me, and he has been here for a long time, and he stuck with it, and he recorded, and he's been a soldier. Thank you so much, Solar Exile. Really proud of you. Thank you so much. Honored to be your friend. Yeah. Okay. Secondly, but not second, Matt Murrah. Matt and I have had a lot of podcast fun. Now, Joshua is going to be joining us on our next Kabbalah episode. So it'll be Matt, Josh, and I, and Nick on Rejects. We'll be doing a live. Yes, live. I know you guys love to come in the comments on lives, which I obviously appreciate very much. Thank you so much. Obviously, I like it, especially with Headless when he's there. So when you say, like, I'm here for the ninja, that's for Gunther, who's not necessarily in the room right now. But when you say those things, I can just see the little twinge, that like, thing. Whatever. I can see the annoyance. So thank you so much. It really helps me. It propels me. Gives me naughty boy monkey energy. Okay, we all know I'm fueled by such things. And so Matt, incredible. Oh, Gunther is in the room. Welcome, Gunther. And Matt, incredible. We love you. I think you're great. I think of you as my like little brother in the lodge. I even said that on live. I was like, he's like our little brother in magic. But Matt's not innocent, and I shouldn't treat him with kid gloves. But as I said in the chat, I'm an old churn. That's just my nature. It's just like older brother syndrome. I'm like the eldest, so everyone to me is is a child. So, okay, Matt, also Kabbalah, check out his website, also offers services. He also is a content creator. I know I'm like totally missing everything that they do. I'm so sorry. Okay, so that's that, Matt. And then obviously Monty. Monty, who's making fucking waves with his magic tweets. Now, I am a good homie, So I will not reveal his magic numbers. But I will tell you, that kid is fucking smart. And he's not a kid. He's only a few years older than me. Or, no, I'm sorry. I'm only a few years older than him. He's not older than me. Sorry, Monty. But, anyways, he's smart. He's been doing magic numbers the whole time. And he's been doing a very specific one. I'm not going to say which one. But it is really interesting because he's had some really good tweets that have gotten the numbers. So, Monty, our veteran podcaster brother, Monty is also a veteran podcaster. He's done, he had a movie podcast. He did Nice. He's been on my show a bunch of times. He's been on Herbie's show, the Kurtcast. I want to call it the Cuntcast, but I know that it's going to be, like, if I say that, it's going to be, I know Herbie would laugh, but I don't know if other people would think it was funny. Anyways, I digress. Yeah, Monty, great dude. We love Monty. He told me how much he loves being in the lodge and how much he appreciates us, and and I'm trying. We're all trying. I think we're all trying to be healthier in a way because we know. Well, I am anyway. I'll just speak for myself. So I'm trying to be more aware, perhaps, of like how much I implicate all of you in my madness, craziness, all of that. So, I'm imperfect. You'll probably get an angry DM from me one day. I hope you forgive me. It's just how it goes. Joshua understands perfectly. He's gotten the most. Him and Solar. Him and Solar have gotten the most, I will say. Oh, and Chris. I'm sorry, Chris, if I didn't say that before. Chris also got one. I apologize for that. Wasn't intentional. It was really out of love. And so this is what my main thing was about before I was going to let the co-host introduce themselves. Because that's really where they know their own natures the best. But I did want to say one thing really quick. John helped me through a really tough astro period, at which he will describe. I'm going to make you John. And you can use my chart even. Not my whole chart, just the thing that that one thing. And, okay. So John actually was smart because he comes to the spaces. So he knows that I actually don't really believe in astrology, but I do speak the language of Kabbalah, and I do also speak the language of Tantra. So he started a new thing, I think. I think this is him experimenting, but he's using me kind of as the guinea pig. So he kind of remixed what my chart said, and he put it in Kabbalistic terms, meaning that I'm agential, meaning that I'm not limited by my astrology. And just like I think that no one is, I actually don't believe that at all. I think you're all agential beings. But he actually told me very precisely. He said, okay, well, like, look, you talk about Jupiter all the time, Jin. What is Jupiter in Kabbalah? Hesed. He's like, Jupiter's going to defend you. It's going to protect you. Of course, I'm like, I have my infamous anti-pagan rant clips. But regardless of that, I understood what he meant. He meant lean into Hesed, the highest principle, bodhicitta, loving kindness. Lean in hard, he said. So at the beginning of the week, I was it sounded insane, messaging him, being like, what do you think of this? What do you think of this? What is going on? What is this? And he said, just like it might be true and it might not be true, but it's also in your own mind, which is something I obviously always say. And he said, you have to lean into loving kindness. He's like, don't you talk about that all the time? I'm like, yeah, actually I do. I actually talk about the importance of green Tara, the importance of loving kindness framework as a middle path technique, as a way to help you climb the whole tree. And yes, even on the left-hand path, whatever that is, because I'm not so sure anymore. As I said, we're in a time of great synthesis, and we're in a time of great rectification. And yes, I'm going to fucking say it. We are in the fucking Aeon of the Daughter. So, all that being said, I love you guys. I really do. Friendship's the most impossible, hardest, difficult thing, and it's all because it's difficult in my own mind. But I'm trying. So, that being said, I'm going to let the hosts, the other hosts, get their shot. And I just want to say, shout out Mario. Thank you, Mario, for coming. Really appreciate it. And I'll do room shout outs when they're done. Joshua, please go ahead.
That was a great intro, man. And yeah, I would like to recognize your spiritual progress. It's been nice to see that in real time. And I, I was reminded of the king, um, just in general as an archetype, or maybe even one of the tarots, that, uh, you can only exercise mercy and true chesed if you're capable of violence and strength. Otherwise, you're just merely weak. And so to be strong and yet restrain yourself and exercise that kindness and mercy is like the kingly nature. So yeah, I think that was just kind of what crossed my mind as you were talking about it. But yeah, thanks so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, of course. And shout out to Mario. I'll be recording a Virgo blurb for his Virgo symbolism episode coming up soon. So it's nice to see him here. Um, Also, we've been talking about doing some Dark Souls and Elden Ring type content, which I know might sound dweebish to non-nerds, but there's a lot of Kabbalah, root race, uh, that type of stuff in the game. It's all built and constructed around stuff like that. Emerald tablets, cycles of death and rebirth. It's pretty deep. So anyway, we'll be doing something like that soon, and we'll be recording with Channel KOK, Chris, sometime soon. We're a little backlogged, but we'll be getting caught up on our Messiah archetype stuff and whatnot. Just life's been kind of busy here lately, but um, thanks.
Thank you, Brother Joshua. And this spaces obviously wouldn't happen without you. I'm so lucky and glad and grateful that you join us. And I also want to say, I understand being backlogged with the podcast. And now, if Solar was here, this is where he would insert himself and give me shit. But the reality is I have been pumping out content, free content. And there is so much fucking more to come. Joshua has an episode in the can. John has an episode in the can. Matt and Zan, Dapper Zan, have an episode in the can. J. David Osborne, who just joined our lodge, he has an episode. Kelby Losak, he has an episode. Monty has an episode. So, got a lot going on. I totally get it. No problem. It happens. And you just keep going. Okay, I'm sorry, Joseph. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Jin. Thank you, Joshua. And hello, everyone. Joseph Reed. I am I've been told the McLuhan Chair of the Grey Lodge. So Marshall McLuhan, media ecology is kind of what my main love, devotion, I should say these days. And then when I say media ecology, I'm thinking maybe people really don't really understand what it is. So very, very briefly, every media, which is a technology, creates an environment. And that environment, as such, is imperceptible to us. Like the ground rules, the pervasive structure, the overall pattern of the environment that is created by every single new medium, from a chopstick to AI, is basically invisible to us. And so what media ecology and what my work that I'm doing is to make the environment visible, to train perception. And to do that, you must create an anti-environment, a counter situation, which is kind of what this space is a very good example of. And also the work that I'm doing with my company, Les Maisons Dieu, in conjunction with the amazing, enigmatic, and elusive artist Taiyo Okamoto. You should definitely give him a follow. We have created what we call an art house. Les Maisons Dieu is an art house. There is a book which you can buy. We've produced a book already. It's on my profile. The link, you could take you right to the page. It's the first edition. There are some copies still left. So the book is the first anti-environment we have created. That focus is masculinity. And what else can I say? Theater, art, structures of consciousness, but that's for another time, and I'm sure it will come up. Thank you very much, everyone, and I'm happy to be here.
Thank you so much, Joseph. Future Saint, I know I'm going to have to drag him on my show. I already figured it out. But thank you so much, Joseph. I'm honestly proud, very proud to know you, very proud to be your friend, and very proud that you're part of our group. Thank you. Seriously. And of course, Mike, not last but not least.
Hello, everyone. I hope you can hear me okay. I'm currently talking on my phone, and I was actually worried that my phone was going to disconnect, but I found a good place. I'm not home. I currently don't have internet. I haven't had internet for like 3 days now. And I took a trip to the casino, and I can talk more about that. Currently trying some stuff out. Don't gamble during Saturn hour. So I don't want to say much more because I want to be held liable for anybody's gambling, whatever they do. But yeah, anyway, and I'm actually, it's Saturn hour right now. And so you got me at like a really good time, and I'm planning on going back in afterwards. But um, Jin, thank you for the introduction, mentioning me earlier. I'm new to this group, and this is my third Spaces with you guys, and I really enjoy talking about these subjects. Um, I'm not even used to being around people that are into any of like the shit that I'm into. I'm kind of, I mean, I've heard Jin talk many times about just being a lone wolf with, uh, in general, with these things, and I definitely resonate with that, and not for any other reason than most people just don't understand the stuff that I'm passionate about and I'm really interested in, but this group is open to the weirdness, and that's really cool. And I really, and it's nice and it's refreshing. And and we still come from different worlds, like very different worlds. I'm like I don't even understand like 90% of the stuff that is said in the chat, but so I'm. But where I come from, mostly like I'm into esoteric stuff generally. I study esoteric stuff deeply. I try to use it in practical ways. I'm trying to build something that is, I can't talk about for the moment, but it encompasses, um, it's like kind of at the intersection of like arts, investing, esoteric disciplines, and things like that. Actually, some of the things that Joseph talks about is somewhat um, intersecting with the things I'm doing. But yeah, but for now, I can't say much more than that. But I do have a lot to say on all these topics. I'm not sure what corpse cultures is exactly, but really looking forward to this, and thank you for having me.
Thank you, Mike, so much, and thank you for tolerating my what I think are fucking amazing titles. Personally, I mean, I said I gave Solar his due, king of lexical precision, right? I'm the fucking king of naming. There you go. So that's my I'm a hode like Prince sometimes. What can I say? Just I'm the king of names. So and names have all the power in this world. There you go. So who's really the OG Solar if you're listening back? Who's really the OG? It's me. I'm just kidding. No, you're all the OGs. But yeah, I'm just my spark burns a little more phosphorescent, we'll say. Of course, John, do you want to come up? John is gonna come up. Yes. And I also brought up, oh sorry, brother. We have brother Dingbat. Of course, our family our he is the true lodge daddy. If you want to say that there's a lodge dad, that's him. More than me, more than John. I'm definitely not. But
Dingbat live from the big road. I'm trucking right now, but I figured I would drop in while I'm in service and say hi to everybody. I'm trucking up to Vegas out of California at the moment.
fuck yeah. That's awesome. As I have always said, this space and our sort of general theme is definitely influenced by Dan from End of Days. If you don't know who Dan is, Dan actually has co-hosted Coast to Coast AM, and he's also interviewed, I think, all the three of the main Coast to Coast guys. even the one that died. So he's kind of an OG. And, Dan kind of was a podcast mentor for a year of mine. I was on his show as a panelist. And so I just felt like everyone who's like the podcasters, they love fucking Coast to Coast. And they say that like the truckers are the best audience because exactly what we talked about in the chat. They are very literally, yes, I'm going to use that word, literally. They are literally driving, so very mercurial, very Hode-like activity by itself, on roads. Roads are also very mercurial, very Hode-like, very expansive. It's actually Hode going to Hesed, if you really want to think about it. It's kind of interesting. And
Also, we're a captive audience. We can't get rid of it. So,
well, there you go. So you're always in flux because you're always in perception. So you're moving, and your consciousness is moving, but you're stationary in the sense of this. You're fixed in space. The sound is fixed in space with you, but your consciousness is always moving, and you're paying attention to other things. So it's a very interesting. You're a very interesting audience from a metaphysical perspective because you're kind of doing magic in a way. I know you're Christian, and I'm not saying you're doing magic, but yeah, you're a road wizard. That's what it is.
well, I take that in the most wholesome context,
As you should.
like magic, you know, where any truck driver that's been truck driving long enough will tell you, once you've been driving for about like 10, 15 years, somewhere around there, you start to develop like this. It's not really a trance state; it's more of like a meditative state where you tune out pretty much everything except like the bare necessities. And then when you're like listening to something, you're choosing to let that in a very specific way. I don't know if magical would be the best word, but there is something magical about it for sure.
What is magic if not a process of consciousness? As you all know, I take an anti-supernaturalist approach in general. I'm not saying none of that shit is real. It's real to a degree. But I think magic really is about processes of consciousness. So that's what I like about like Joseph and Mike, is they kind of Joseph brings that media ecology because that's what media ecology is. It's training, exactly what he said, is training your perception. Being in perception, that's fucking magic. That's magic. That's all it is. Now,
Speaking of
sorry,
speaking of road magic, by the way, I would like to say shout out though for entertaining me when I talk about R.S. Belcher all the time. Everybody should read those books because they're wonderful.
absolutely read the Trucker Templar books.
Yeah, it's King of the Road is the second book, and then the first book is the Brotherhood of the Wheel. And just as he suggests, it's all about the Knights Templar. They protected people on the roads to Jerusalem, and then their mission became later on when America developed like a highway and interstate system. We inherently started placing them along ley lines in the country, and they attract evil like serial killers, like monsters, stuff like that. So the Knights Templar went about their new business where mailmen, cops, like highway patrol, truck drivers, firemen, anybody that works on the road is like has people that are part of it. It's very, very good. He's a very talented author.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Brother Dingbat, for that. I was just wanted to say really quick, we will go back to this idea. I think it's a great idea. Okay, yes, Brother Dingbat, go ahead. You don't like that?
I pressed the wrong button for a second there. I was
Oh,
just gonna
no
wave.
problem. I'm so glad you came up, but I just want to say about what Mike was saying. He brings it to the material. So Joseph is talking about consciousness, and Mike's also talking about consciousness, but then he's talking about bringing it into into matter, into formation. So Malkuth maxing, as we always talk about, because it's very important. How can you rise in the world or even sustain without a kingdom, without some kind of sense of self, and then also a foundation of stability that is also in your mind, but it's also something outside of you. So I actually think that it's a perfect kind of metaphysical situation in a way because we all kind of activate, you could say, different spheres or different ideas or maybe even different densities of the Sephira. If you want to use, I know Matt will love this. If you want to use like the tree as an example, we all kind of embody our own archetypes, even if we have similar. Hey Tyrone, what's up? So Tyrone, everybody go check out Tyrone, Rebirth of the World. I've worked with him many times. Great dude, knows a ton of shit. He's a vet. He gets it. He's like he's a word cell too. He's a reader and he's a talker. So, that's a good. He's another great trucker radio. So thank you so much, Tyrone. Awesome to see you. Of course, thank you, Mario, so much. Your channel on IG is amazing. Your YouTube is amazing. Your aesthetic is amazing. I saw your thing on Durga and lion riding goddesses. Thought that was like so fucking cool. I was like, yeah. I was like, oh great. I'm so glad you're talking about. People get the Puranas so wrong, and they understand those goddesses so wrong, and I think that's part of my ill reputation on Twitter, whether it's deserved or not deserved. Partly deserved, but partly not deserved, because I'm usually right, is the truth, but I probably have a wrong delivery. But there is no real right delivery in religious debates. So we'll just say I'm right all the time. But I'm really glad to see that Mario is like doing that, because he reaches like a much broader audience than I do, and I'm to have them be more informed of those ideas, that they don't have to just be fixed right in the sort of Western or presentation of the Shaktis or the feminine divine energy. But I did want to just address one thing before I do a room shout out: corpse cultures. So yes, Mike, I was doing a little, okay. So I'll tell the real story. So as you know, I love to name drop brother Greg Kaminsky. Obviously, he's like a major magician, has been involved in the American magical scene for a long, long time. I had him on my show. I was like a nobody scrub podcaster, but I wasn't, because he had actually listened to me on 11-part Tantra. It discussed Tantra and Kabbalah for 33 hours, 11 episodes. I compared every Sephira to a goddess, to a Tantric goddess, the grouping of Mahavijja, the 10. So it kind of made perfect sense. So he was actually, and he's a Pico della Mirandola scholar. He actually has a PhD in Pico della Mirandola, you could say. And he was impressed enough with my articulation of those things in a Kabbalistic way that he was like, hell yeah, I'm going to work with Jin. And so I had him on my show a long time ago, and it was amazing. It was like seminal. It was kind of raised me up in the world, you could say. So now, fast forward to now he's telling me what we're doing is amazing. So I don't know, pretty cool. Kind of an OG, oldest occult podcast still running from 2006. It's pretty cool. Just saying, pretty cool. Anyways, okay. We'll do real room shoutouts. I'm sorry, I had to do that little story because I do feel proud of myself. Like when he likes my shit, I'm like, I used to listen to Occult of Personality when I was like, little young scrub mage back in my like whatever. I'll use a magic number 17. Say, I used to listen to him, and so now that he kind of thinks like, yeah, it's like anyways, the story is he told me to be more of an edgelord. Not told me, he said lean into that inclination that I already had. So that's where corpse cultures comes from. Because ritual corpse sadhana is real, but it's not what people think it is. It's really not what people think it is at all. And so that's what I thought I would discuss. But I just, in terms of seminal kinds of things that have happened, that's been a seminal thing that's kind of, you want to call it a Saturn return, that he's sort of like come back into my orbit. That's pretty cool, I think. I don't know. I'm sorry, I'm giving myself like too much kudos. But I want to also say like Zach's episode was a seminal episode for me. Like the whole series, obviously Twyman kind of changed my life, changed me, changed the show, changed like the nature of how I even understand reality now. It changed the fact that I do these spaces. I call them plus ultra. That obviously comes right from there. And obviously the idea of the pink ray and the hyperspace kingdom, although not precisely hers, they're all kind of locking ideas, or they're intermingling. So they're obviously, that's a genesis for what this space became. And then, all these episodes that I've been doing with everyone in the lodge has in their own way been like seminal, axial, incredible, and just like the fact that we keep it going. And I think that's what's also scary. I think that's what scares me about friendship the most, more than like other love or familial, is the thing that it can just go away. It can disappear. And like Zach and I know this, like for real. And it does not feel great to feel like the ground that you stand on is unstable. But there's a great Kabbalistic lesson here. No, Sandra, don't cry. It's okay. It's a great Kabbalistic lesson. Because it is. Because, why? Because it is the aeon of flux, so you must be fucking dancing. Neptune, Saturn matrix. Right? You have to pull yourself through the smoke. You have to pull yourself through the carnal ground. So, it's a great lesson. But I think that when we're in space together, I'm not just talking about the transcendent nature of uh, space and an app called X. And I know I have my whole shtick about that. I wasn't even going to do it tonight, but yeah, I'll do it a little bit. So we're on we transcend time and space to come together. And I think it's only fitting that we treat each other with as much as we have capacity to. And in that way, we have infinite capacity to treat each other with loving kindness. So that is kind of the energy and the aura, as Misa would say. As you know, I'm good friends with Misa. And so she would say that we have to have aura. So our aura is of loving kindness. So that is kind of like what we bring to it. So yeah, you're right, Mike. We're not all the same. We come from very different backgrounds. I know everyone doesn't really get it sometimes, as I'm told. That's okay. I'm okay with that. I'm okay to be niche. That's fine for me. I'm very happy in that. As I've said, I'm all about what I think is cool, what I perceive as cool. I've talked to Joseph about this quite extensively. I'm sorry, Joseph, in DM, and I said, like, yeah, I'm really attracted to, as a millennial, I'm just really attracted to that polarity, that temperature, and so I try and bring that to the space, and I think that the coolness in our aeon is respect and loving kindness as much as possible, but in discernment. As Joshua said, he knows that I'm very fond of that. The Gevuratic and Hasidic kind of the shift, the way it's the taut bow and arrow. That's a perfect metaphor for it. It's the arrow that's waiting taut, but it's not pulled because it's in discriminating awareness. Okay, yeah. Sorry, Mike. Please go ahead.
Yeah, so Jin, very well said. I just wanted to add on to what you're saying because it is a group of people coming from very different backgrounds, but I think what makes it work is that it's like the foundation of everyone's perspective is open-minded, and people believe in that, the nature of reality is weird. I think in society right now it can be very difficult to believe in anything, and to connect with people at the same time, because people can be so dogmatic and materialistic in their perspectives. And if you mention one thing that like somebody doesn't agree with, so many times I've done that and I've just been written off, and people just think I'm weird, and it makes you want to um, not talk about these things. But still, I try to talk about these things and make people, just to open people's perspectives a little bit, because I don't want to get bullied by the conventional way of seeing the world, which is, not how the world really is. And I was talking to somebody last night actually, and it was really a refreshing conversation. And they were really smart. They were an Oxford PhD student, and I'm always scared to mention anything esoteric, but I just mentioned something, and then they were cool with it, and we were having a little bit of a conversation, and they actually told me that, well, this is actually related to the thing I mentioned in the chat. The one time they first told me that they witnessed an exorcism in China, and he didn't really even believe that the exorcism was like an exorcism and like a demon or something. I don't think exorcism means demon necessarily, but something that was like happening to this person was like making them crazy. And he told me that somebody was talking in tongues and performing this, like putting rituals or putting like runes around this person, and they it like made them come back to normal. And I was like, how do you think, like what do you think happened? And he was like trying to explain it in a materialist perspective, with saying like he thinks that it was like a generational thing with like being schizophrenic, but he wasn't um but he wasn't materialist, where it's like he was just trying to explain within like a framework that he understands. He wasn't saying that like that is what happened, and like that nothing else could have been the truth of what happened. And it's just that his perspective of just, not knowing the truth, but being open to like talking about weirdness and not rejecting people for talking about weird things is, I think, what more people should adopt that aren't like fully engulfed in the weird stuff like most people probably in the spaces right now.
Well said, Mike. Could not agree more. This is, I always say, like, I'm going to say it one more time. I'm sorry. Then I'll let Brother Dingbat go. But it is the anaflux. It truly is. I really believe that. You don't have to believe that. It could be totally speculative. Could be totally Jin's bullshit. That's fine. But I do think it is, and I think I make a case for it. I think I can explain it. I think I can lay it out Kabbalistically. I think I can lay it out in Tantra. And all Tantra is written in a discursive language. It's kind of long form. That's kind of what makes it Tantra. So that's what I honestly wanted the spaces to be. I wanted them to be Tantric spaces where magic, the word, quote unquote, can emerge. So I think you can't do that if you're dogmatic. Can't do that if you're too ideological. Like, I'm Buddhist, of course, everybody knows. So I bring the Dharmic frame, and I am careful about my articulation of certain things, because I'm non-dual. I don't want people to like go think it's like I must do this extreme thing, black magic, etc., or the other thing, be like I have to go be Tradcath. I don't think that's useful either. So I'm, trying to balance the polarities when I even discuss it. But I think that it doesn't fit anyone to be ideological, and I think we've all learned that going through 2020. So I'm sorry, Brother Dingbat, and then Joseph Reed. Please go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, wanted to add something onto the exorcism thing. I read a very interesting book that you guys may enjoy as well. It was called Prisoner to the Devil. I read it about 16 years ago. It's by a Catholic priest who was an exorcist, right? And he kind of goes about explaining a few different cases of exorcism over his years of doing his job. And one of the uniform things about exorcism is that the primary thing that he says in there that's very important to remember is that there's always a point in these people's lives where they come to a crossroad of sorts in their life, where they're experiencing trauma, or they are hopeless, or like they're angry, and you have to willingly let something in. Like, it's not a process by which in the movies you subsumed by some sort of evil force or something like that. You have to actually make the choice to let something in to yourself, to become inhabited by one of these external evils. And I think from even a non-Christian perspective, this permeates pretty much like every religious culture, we could say. And I just think that's like an interesting thing. I wanted to plug that book a little bit for Mike. And it's an interesting thing to go over and like think about, where it's kind of universal, that this external evil does exist, and the only way that it can actually access what you are is through your willingness to bring it into yourself.
Well, that's so interesting you bring that up, because what is modern magic? Modern magic's a lot about the will with a capital W. So, of course, that's true. But do you want the real truth nuke, or truke, as Monty would say? Of
I would love it. And also, I just remembered it was Malachi Martin was the author of that book. If you were looking for it.
Awesome. Thank you. We'll definitely throw that up in the chat, or someone can nest it for you since you were driving. But I wanted to say that, in Buddhism, we think of all those external evils as really just being archons of your own mind. It's kind of crazy if you think about it. Anyways, I'm sorry. Please, Joseph, go ahead. I know you've been waiting forever.
No, it's totally fine. Yeah, I wanted to follow up with something that Mike and also Brother Dingbat has said. In terms of like the weirdness of it all, like I being an elder among the lodge, I would say like I have been called weird my entire life, and it's totally fine. Like it's just 100% fine. So embrace it as you will. There is another thing about being dogmatic and ideological, and this also applies to perception, training perception. You can't perceive something when you have a point of view. Like you cannot understand something if you have a point of view. If your point of view is like locked into some place, you're not going to see the whole picture. So it's really important to be able to let those things go and be able to move around, within your own consciousness, within your own mind, to look at things from many perspectives. Like I often think of it, the disco ball, and it casting all those different little scintillas of light all over the place. It has to be a little bit like that. And in terms of like exorcism, we can still go on with the exorcism stuff, but of course. But I want to bring up, since it's corpse culture, when the time is appropriate, because I'm currently reading a book about cannibalism, and you were talking about cannibalism last night on the other live show on Rejects. That was a super interesting synchronicity for me, and so. The book I'm reading is a memoir. It's called Keep the River on Your Right, of this anthropologist who went and lived with a cannibal tribe in Peru. And the things that he had to like overcome within himself to like, he couldn't believe like these people were like, he had such love for them and they could not be any other way but what they were. And of course, like there's the whole church coming in and trying to save them, quote unquote, save them. And whenever they did, they would die. They would just wither away and die. So super interesting book about that, corpse culture. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Joseph. Mike, please go ahead.
Okay, so that's really interesting. I can only imagine what the implications of eating another person is, but like spiritually, but also how they would die if they didn't eat people. I'm kind of weird with the things I eat because I feel like the vibration of the things I eat affects, like the older I get, the more sensitive I am to things. And I don't even, when I was younger, I actually used to like raw sushi. I can't even eat raw food anymore. And I can't imagine how a eating a person would affect you just like spiritually, like energetically. That's crazy. I am kind of blanking on what my initial thing I wanted to talk about was. So I'm just gonna bring it back to Jin.
Jin's always good to go. That was whole joke. Yeah, I knew Joshua was. I was actually going to do a bit where I was going to say I can hear the wheel turning in Joshua's head, and actually in my mind's eye can see the sparks as Mike is saying that, because Joshua has been, if you follow the chat, he's been asking me, prodding me, goading me, maybe you could say, but in a kind brotherly way. But he really wants to talk about the 5 meats of Buddhism, one of which is a man. So, what can I say? They're completely conceptual. and they're also post-conceptual. They're just husks to understand something greater and something deeper, and they're predicated on Sambodhya Gaya, which is Twilight language, and the inner-outer secret tantric dialectic. That's all it is. Ferocious images, just like how some of you watch horror movies. You think that's any different? That's no different. You've seen the carnal ground. Some of you are veterans. That's the battlefield is also the carnal ground. So you've already seen it. So that's all it is. It's using those things in the world, in perception, recognizing that yes, we live on the carnal ground and we live on the garden both. So you're using those things as visualizations. That doesn't mean that you worship those visualizations. It doesn't mean that you say, oh, we must go, flay the indentured servant. Like, you're not just, it's not to go to extremes. The whole point is to be middle pathing the whole time. You're bringing it into synthesis, you're bringing it into perception, you're bringing it into loving kindness, and you're rectifying at the same time. Yeah, it's a lot, but it is actually, we are the best poised. We're multi-generational. Like, be very clear about that in a way, but in a way we're kind of not, because we're kind of unbounded from those social conventions, especially because when you really realize it, generations are bullshit. It's really, those are just advertising demographics. That's not real. That's not like how people actually relate to each other. And this is, again, where another instance where kind of like that indigenous geontology makes a lot more sense. And so that is sort of the realization I'm also coming to, is that Joseph's right. You can't, when you are discarding ideology, you're much clearer in your view. And so I've realized that maybe some of those trappings, those aesthetic trappings of like the quote unquote dissident sphere and I'm still more right wing than not, but I'm just being honest. When I let some of those fetters go, I kind of recognize that like, actually I wasn't just a fucking idiot all those years that I, who I thought I was as like someone on more left-wing politics, but actually had some interesting ideas. Maybe they were malformed and maybe they didn't reach the right conclusions, all of that. Okay, fine, I accept. I'm a person in flux and I can change my fucking mind. So I can also reappraise the things I thought before. So that's kind of what corpse culture is about too. Reappraising what has come before, but in sort of like the fullness of your consciousness right now, not grasping and saying like, yeah, I did not self-actualize under left-wing politics until I started being like my own agent. Could not really, it was much harder, I'll just say that. But now it's become a lot more, I can maneuver, I can be a quicksilver surfer, right? Because I'm kind of like, yeah, I don't have to care about everything. I don't have to put my will into everything. That's totally okay. That's good, in fact. Yes, Mike, please go ahead.
Yeah, that's a great point, and I wanted to add on to that. So when I was younger, I was definitely ideological in the way of like my politics. Just getting into, I mean, I don't know how it was for you guys, but when I first was just aware of politics and was invested in it, I had a very biased viewpoint. And I think that's just natural. You know, you have to, whatever like your internal, like archetypal, viewpoint is, you're more aligned to that. I think there's value in any side, right, left, Democrat, Republican, progressive, conservative. Like there's something in everything. Like there's a reason why they exist. Um, and it is, as I've gotten older, I've seen the value in all of them, and it is like a natural push and pull between these different elements, and you don't want to get dogmatic or like too invested in any one viewpoint or party, because then you're not really thinking for yourself. I hold views, you know, I, there's subjectivity to all of these things, and sometimes there isn't like a true right or wrong. It is just subjective, but things can get too extreme, and when something is too extreme, then that's just wrong, and you want to pull it back to the center, like the middle path, like you were saying, Jen. Like everything, I always try to view everything from the middle. Like if there's all discourse is just two different extremes of perspectives, and you want to get to the middle, and there's a little bit of subjectivity in the middle, but there's, if you're on like the extreme side of any of those scales, like you're wrong, and if you're identifying too much with one extreme, like you're just, that is what you want to avoid.
Yeah, 100% agree. Ding, do you want to go quick? If you have a long one, then let Joseph go.
No, I just had a very short one. I think it's very fascinating the way that you guys are talking about the middle path, in this way, because the way I've always viewed it, especially going into my 20s and into my 30s, like becoming a father has definitely had a very profound effect on my life, and how I view the world and how I want to interact with politics and stuff like that. But the way I've always perceived things, naturally people gravitate towards the middle. Like, of course, everybody wants to have, universal health care, for instance. That's ideal for pretty much 99% of people, that are working. That's what we want, but at the same time, like, we can't also have like unlimited immigration, stuff like that. So what we tend to find in societies is people want to have tight knit communities, and they want to have like the most bang for their buck for like their tax dollars, which means having universal health care for those communities and stuff like that. But the political interests that are driving things that have their hands on the proverbial like levers, they're pulling from the middle to both sides, right? So they're pulling away from what is central to like the majority of people on both sides. So it's peeling away on both sides. It's tearing at the ragged edges of people and like their communities in a very sinister way a lot of the time. So, but most people want, it's like you said with like this middle path stuff, most people want the same exact thing. It doesn't change like in really any society.
Okay, this is a great point, because as Monty reminded me, I should be. It's not that we are anything. I eschew all labels, of course, except for Happaborian. But there is an idea in some of the fourth positionist sort of thinking, Dukinist, whatever, about synthesis. I'm not talking about him. I fight with him on Twitter all the time, as some of you know. Okay, that's fine. But the idea of like bringing these disparate sort of ideas together, like people do want the same, but we don't live in the same world now. That's also the truth. I'm not yelling at you. I'm just saying it. I'm being very animated. The We don't live in the same world, so we kind of have to reconcile the polarities, reconcile the opposites. We have to kind of resynthesize, redetermine, redisaggregate, rectify. We've got a lot more work. And yes, I agree. It would be great if you could have structures like universal healthcare, but I will just say, like, it is, when your state is falling apart, and I'm not talking about the state as in like West Virginia, whatever state, I'm talking, the state. It's a very destructive and dangerous fall, because everybody's then reliant on those structures, and they're bringing in everyone else. So I think this is something Solar talks about, like parallel. Do we need parallel structures? Do we need parallel thinking? Do we need something I suggested maybe was like in sort of like parallel infrastructure within the law itself? Like, do you just build within the legal frameworks, corporations, all that stuff, like NGOs? Do you just build it all from scratch, like sort of new networks, new Ipsos, new ideas? Maybe. I don't know. I don't really have any answers, but I think it's interesting. And I think the middle path doesn't seem dynamic. That's one thing I wanted to say. But it is. It's actually the most dynamic if you know what you're doing. That's what makes it challenging. It requires a lot more of you. Yes, Joseph, I'm sorry. I'm not going to apologize to you, but I'm going to apologize to the space that I, intercepted your time.
Now, where is the eye rolling emoji when I need it? Anyway, I really wish Brother Solar was here because I think he would enjoy what I want to talk about here is, okay, it's, again, it's our perception. And it's not being helped by the language that we're using, okay? The language that we use, and having looked at this for some time, is very perspectival. And the time that we are moving into is a time of, well, you can say decoherence, Jin. That's very on the money. It's decentralized, but it is perspectival, not the opposite, not unperspectival, but the Greek without perspective. So it's perspective. You're free from perspective. So when we say things like right wing, left wing, when we talk about things like polarities, okay, we're using very lineal language. Like it's very flat. Okay, so we've got the x-axis and the y-axis. What we're moving to is something, we have to think about the z-axis, but we have to think of the w, u, v, p, q, all those other axes as well. So as Matt Olson says, the tree is ever changing, the tree is ever moving. So even to say the middle path, because even that has a kind of like lineal kind of way about it. And if we can get to a point where, like, where is the path when you're surfing a wave, right? It's kind of like happening as you're going, right? And so things are coming to us, all happening from all sides all at once. And so we're moving into a time of, species mutation, where the center will be everywhere and the margins will be nowhere, because everyone will be their own center. And I think we've been sold a bill of goods for the longest time with this dystopian nonsense. To hold on to anything, Brother Dingbat was talking about the center, fraying because of things are going to extremes. Well, then we're also holding on to something. So I feel like it's important to let go. And we might find that the abyss that we fear so much is actually a feather bed. And we will just ride along, float down. Wouldn't that be nice? Thank you.
I mean, what can you say? How do I even follow that up? I'm not a Frater Dark Cell Academia, unfortunately, or fortunately, maybe. I'm just Jin. So for me, but I agree. I totally agree. Right, it's Tara, but that's why I use the surfing metaphor. I love the allegory of the surfer, a silver surfer, because why? He's looking at the supernal waters. Exactly what Joseph said. He's forging the path as he travels through space on the mercurial wave. It's pretty fucking cool. And the wave is what? Hesed, loving kindness. But it doesn't, it's not just loving kindness by itself. It's loving kindness in his fucking perception. That's just cool. He has to be flow. He has to be the water. Like, this is something Ethan talks about. If you ever watch Rejects with Ethan on it. He surfs. You have to, it's all about flux and flow and sort of just being in it. And that is kind of where loving kindness is. And I made the joke and I'm going to make it again. And I'm sorry. There are many Jays that I love who may or may not be here tonight. And there are also many in our lodge, just saying, even among the co-hosts, not me. But I will say the Hasidic idea, it really over intellectualizes what the Buddhist idea really is. And the Buddhist idea is much more free. That's why I love the dakinis. I mean, that is the metaphor, right? They're dancing. She's dancing. She's pink. She's red. She's turquoise. She's green flashing. She's dancing on the fucking corpse of lust, corpse of desire. So you can just keep going. Just keep going. You're not grasping. You're not a Naga. You've conquered them. Anyways, I'm sorry. Mike, please go ahead.
So I wanted to. I'm trying. Whenever someone speaks, I have to hold stuff in my brain so hard. I don't have a pen and paper right now. That would help me a lot. Um, but I did wanted to add on to what Joseph was saying, and Jin, you of course as well, with surfing and the movement of this like subjective center, because there isn't just a center. There's it's moving all the time. And recently, I was reading a book just talking about the precession of the equinoxes and how the different um, processions, which aligned with different signs of the zodiac, was noticeable within Egyptian society. So Egyptian society was like just very long, so you can see when the precession of the equinox was in. I think it was in Gemini first, and then Taurus. But you see this change in society where the rulers and just like the art and like the monuments was like built around the current precession of the equinox. So it was like in Gemini, and then when it entered Taurus, then people started worshiping bulls, and like they were adding the word for like the pharaohs were like adding the word for bull to their name, and bulls became the center. That was like the wave to surf in a way. And there's a lot of cycles. That's just one cycle, but that is a noticeable cycle. And when Joseph is saying the X, Y, Q, Z, like there is a lot of axes. There's like a million different cycles, and you have to and that's really, I think, what your subtler senses are trying to help you navigate with is like, because it's such a complex um, phenomenon that you can't fully understand, even if you're an expert in studying cycles. Like you have to listen to your just what is like instinctive inside of you. And the other cycle that I wanted to mention was the saculum. And I wish John would come up and talk about this stuff, because I know he has like studied and like read about this stuff. But the saculum, like we're in like a very weird place in society right now. And for those that aren't aware of the saculum, it's like an 80 to 100 year cycle that was known to the ancient Romans, and it was a very pivotal part of their society. It was pretty central actually to their society. It's one of, if not the most important cycle, and it's a natural cycle. It's not an astrological cycle. So it's based on the, you could say it's like based on the emotions and behaviors of humans. It ranges in length, similar to like a market cycle, and it goes through the same phases on just a larger time frame, and it goes through the elements, the archetypal elements. And so the guy who originally discovered the saculum was Neil Howe and Richard William or Richard. I'm forgetting his name exactly. I think it's William Strauss. Okay, I'm mixing up their names, but they wrote a book called The Fourth Turning, and they just broke it up into like its four archetypal components. And what he's been saying for a while is that we entered the fourth turning, and the fourth turning is an earth element cycle, or part of the cycle, and that is connected to like basically like the dismantling of society. Um, so we saw like a lot of things happen over the past 20, 30 years with like innovations in technology and the internet and computers and whatever. And that was like the intellectual part of the cycle. That was like the air part of the cycle. Now we're in the earth part of the cycle. And this is connected to like the body and like the foundational parts of society and the financial foundation. And that's why you see like crypto becoming like a bigger phenomenon and like just making its way to more mainstream. And you see just like, I don't know what you guys like have on your feed, but like the body has just become like the body, like literally and like metaphysic or metaphorically has become more important than like the mind, which is what most people were kind of, which was where most attention was over the past like 20, 30 years. And during this point, we see the dismantling of society, and then it opens the door to a new cycle where you have a um, rebirth of society in a way, and it allows for new energies to take place, and then you surf those energies. Um, and yeah, that's the last point I want to make, but you're surfing all of these energies, and that is one of the more important energies to be aware of.
What if I told you, Mike, that I laid this out, this exact cosmology that you're talking about, in a little series called Aeon of the Daughter? That we are actually in the fourth and fifth turning both. Because there's always a witness to the wheel turning. So the 4 has to be in the 5, which you can also say is Hesed and Gevurah, or Gevurah and Gedula. Since Matt is not here, I get to be the cool. Well, I am the original, the OG Kabbalah King, so it makes sense. But I'm just saying. So where are those things? The fire and the water. The water of loving kindness and the fire of awareness, as well as discrimination, but not, it's maybe that's the wrong word to use for an American audience. Maybe that's a more consciousness dhyana, like Buddhist phrase, but it is kind of what is Geberotic, Joshua? I mean, Geberotic is the ability to discern. It's discernment. That's the perfect way to describe it. It's discerning the application of loving kindness. Again, the taut bow is the perfect metaphor because you can shoot it if you choose, but you can also hold it back. Holding it back sometimes can be its own mercy. I have an imperfect vehicle, obviously, to say this, but it is also true. So I do think we are in a fifth turning phase called the Aeon of the Daughter. I think that we are moving in a non-dual way. I think that we are moving towards an American Dharma. I know that sounds scary and probably weird to people, but I've sort of already said all this as well. Joshua, Solar Matt, all of them basically have said all of this, so we better not, go too far away from our words. I will say one idea that Ram and I have extensively discussed is this idea of I think John as well. John definitely. We've discussed this idea of like the Aeon of the Daughter being a very short cycle. It's an axial age. It actually represents the turning of the wheel rather than a fixed age in and of itself. And that's kind of why you have to resurrect the daughter from the mythologies. Not resurrect her per se, but you have to kind of find her, say who she is, name her, very metaphysically powerful, right? So and then the archetype can sort of take form and turn the wheel because it turns in our perception. We are the wheel turners, but we have to package the story in a very specific way. I'm not saying package it in a religious or framework, but I did package it in a kind of Dharmic, Gnostic, syncretic framework, which I think is also very much of the Aeon, because we have the internet, we have all this bullshit, and we have all these amazing knowledges. And we have to sort of be discriminating and discerning in, selecting, because maybe it's not the whole text itself. And this was my other sort of point about Aeon of the Daughter. We live read Gnostic texts. Some of those Gnostic texts have a long and storied magical history because a lot of magical societies would base their kind of cosmology on the what I call the We Was Kang phenomena, which is people projecting themselves backwards into time and saying that we are connected to the primordial cult. But if you really look at those texts, and I think I did, and I think I make a case for this, that if you read them as they are, as if they are tantric texts in a non-dual middle path way, you can actually see the real seeds. Because this is what I started doing with the Twyman series when I did it with the two Zacks. I started just looking for the metaphysical seeds in things rather than, I don't care about her biography. I don't care about any of that. It's not that I don't care. It's just that I didn't find it that interesting. So I was like, okay, let's see what's more. Let's see what's this is more. Like, what is she really saying? Like, let's map it to Kabbalah. That's why I love Kabbalah. And I would say I've emphasized it as part of like our hermeneutic for the spaces. because it's such a good way. Like, you all could look at a tree and maybe you're like, what the fuck's Jin talking about? And that's fine. I'm fine with that. But Joshua was like that at one time. And you know what he did? He spent like many weekends reading Kabbalah. I'm just saying. He visibly improved. He improved so much that Matt and I both said how much he had improved when he came to a space one day. So I'm just saying is that it's not beyond anyone. It's not some crazy, only J only, thing. It's not. It's really the hermeneutic, the primordial hermeneutic. But like Matt and as Joseph referenced, it does change. So what is the middle pillar? Well, in Buddhism, the middle pillar would be the fifth path. That's really what you want, the secret sauce. That's the secret sauce. It's kind of emptiness. It's kind of sound, and it's kind of loving kindness, and it's kind of all of those things together. I know that's a little complicated sounding, but somewhere in there, okay, is what we would call the primordial view. So the view is exactly to play off what Joseph said. Like, what do you look at? What do you pay attention to? Is that a narrative? Is that a person? Is that an ideology? All of those things are just klipas. I'm not saying each other are klipas. People can have many klipas, though, as we all know, because we all have them, including myself, which is not necessarily evil. But if we grasp too hard at them, they become aggregates and skandhas. And then then they're much harder to clear. So if you're more of a aeon in flux, if you're more of a, hermetic sage king, we shall say, of the cosmos, not me, but the Quicksilver Surfer, then you're more able, like Mike said, you kind of can synthesize as you go. It's not as stable, sure, but there is something useful, and you all know that I do believe pragmatism is the true guiding philosophy, perhaps, of our new aeon. Because this is the aeon for us to make things right. If you want my true opinion, this is my like more secret, like Jin tantric stuff, but I've talked about it, so it's okay for me to talk about it now. That was the point of doing the series, not so much that people would have to go back and listen, but so I could self-refer to work I already did. I don't know if that sort of response is something you've been thinking about, Joseph, but I meant to tell you that. It's more so I have a body that I can say, yes, a body, a corpse. I can choose the wisdom and I can reference it because I've already said it. So it's okay. It's part of the archive. So that's really what it is. And so I think that I do think we have to rectify what came before. And I don't think it has anything to do with left or right. I don't think it has anything to do with like wokeness, not wokeness. Like, I don't even know what that is. And like, I'm a culture warrior. Like, I'm conservative. I don't like any of the weird shit. I really don't. I'm not into it. But I also can't control other people. And I also have to live in society, and I also have to live in flux. Now, if you want to be a Wignod and go move to Arkansas, that's great. Like, all the power to you. Good job. Okay, hope you saved the white race. Like, yay, white boys. Great. But, and like, yeah, and I'm half white too. And I'm not even white. I'm like ethnic white. Like French Canadian, like real ethnic white. So that's just really funny to me. They always tell me they're going to deport me. Where are you going to deport me to, Naga? I've been here longer than you. Anyways. So I just think that we just are to go again. Sorry, Dr. Joseph Reed, to go off of what he said, and then I'm going to let our other doctor, Dr. William Birkin, go. I know he's been waiting. I'm sorry, Joshua, but she is post-conceptual. Very important idea for the Dakini. This is the most important idea. If you ever see me post Vampirella, a Dakini, even the red really ferocious one, the wow, the one that's like, whoa, what is that? She's post-conceptual. You cannot label her. You cannot name her. You cannot say she's a whore. She's not. She's beyond conception. Post-conceptual. Labels don't adhere. That's how I think that we should try and go. It's not going to be perfect, and it's definitely not easy. But I think we just recognize, like, yeah, like, cool, send them all back. I still believe that. I really do. I believe in borders. The kingdom, should be within yourself, number one, your house, number two, and your community, number three. But if you're going to be in a nation, then you kind of have to have a fixed idea, fixed area of what that is. It's just Kabbalistically true. So you should have that. But if you don't have that, it doesn't look like we're really going to, it doesn't really look like there's any political solutions to anything that has arisen over the last decade or maybe more. I just am wondering, like, where should we be putting our attention? I'm not saying don't believe those things. Don't have convictions. Don't have, like, your meta political sort of goals. But I also think, like, maybe the point is that we relate to each other. That's kind of where I'm at. I don't know. That's where I'm at. I know Solar's going to be like Jen. But anyways, it is what it is. I'm Hesed maxing. Okay. Sorry, Joshua, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I was thinking about you mentioned the 5 cycles, and you guys were talking about that earlier. And then I remember you were mentioning the 5 meats. And so I got to thinking, in Chinese astrology, especially, years are often named after animals. And so I was just curious, does the 5 meats happen to relate to, like, maybe some cycles, yearly cycles, things like that? Because I can't help but wonder about the whole purpose of enlightenment and this and that is to be that fruitful harvest, right? But does it occur on a regular basis? It's just so far apart that we humans aren't aware of it, But anyway, I was just curious if this was is it like a cheat code to, like, skip, your rebirths and achieve nirvana or whatever? Is that like the goal of the 5 meats, or to not have to reincarnate or whatever? So I was just curious if that made any sense, and if any of the 5 symbolism, which, by the way, one of the cycles was Earth, right? So I was thinking of the 4 elements plus the 5th element, which is spirit. But which of the meats would be spirit? Well, would maybe the human meat? And then I was thinking of the age of Aquarius and, all that. Anyway, I didn't want to meander too much. I just wanted to kind of fire off a few thoughts I had while you guys were talking.
I'm gonna let Mike go really quick. I'm gonna go really quick, and then I'm gonna let Mike go. But to respond to you, so I'll respond to 2 things. So the Mike said the Earth element. This Solar actually asked me this question on one of the spaces. I can't remember which one. He was like, "What element is Kurkula?" Who I liken to the daughter, and there's also a Gnostic figure, Nuria, who I liken to the daughter, and Mary Magdalene, obviously, okay, etc. But what is the bija for the Buddhist goddess or the Sri Vijaya goddess? To shout out Ram. Because they're the same, really, but not quite, but more like than not. It's Hrim. So I usually don't give bijas, and I usually wouldn't even pronounce it properly. But what's important about this bija is that it's the bija of fire and flowers. So it is in and of itself earth. It's fire. It's water. It's air, and it's also mind, because it's the epinoia of Nuria. That's the Gnostic text, right? That's the text where the daughter really comes into her own being. It's actually very, very interesting. I'm not trying to, like, resurrect that talking point, but if I'm laying out the meta mythology or the neo mythology of what it is, I think it's important that I actually tell you, like, here's something you can go and read that is real. But it's the thought, right? So the whole thought is that the daughter is a complement. Talking about, like, what Joseph said, she's a direct complement. That doesn't mean, this is something from Allison Quinn, who's also in our lodge. She recorded an episode with me, and she was like, Jen, I think it's more of a syzygy, not a couple. And I laid this out in Anna of the Daughter, and I don't know, somehow I kind of convinced myself that it wasn't. It was more of a Buddhist idea of them together in Yab Yum, consort yoga. But actually, and I even talked about this in my Kurkula episode on my show, my favorite episode that I, like, did on Tantra, she's consortless. So I don't know why. I guess I got lost, Joseph, in my own perceptions of things, or the way I narrated it more recently. But I realized, like, yeah, she's kind of right. It can be both. Both. It's more non-dual, but both. So that's what it is. She kind of liberates the son through her love. So if you want to say that's Christ, that's totally fine. I've made out a case that that's fine. I like Christian Kabbalah. I like Pico. I name drop Greg K like through a million times. So I mean, you all know where I'm coming from with that. So I like Christian Kabbalah. I don't think Christian Kabbalah is the answer. And yes, I am answering your question, Joshua. So you were asking me about like what the soteriological goal. There's different soteriological goals in Buddhism. Sometimes we talk about it in the chat. I'm just going to give a more tantric, Indian tantric, not necessarily Buddhist, but yeah, there's a layer way to respond. So you have bhukti, mukti, and siddhi or siddha. So bhukti, we talked about this quite extensively. Ram brought it up. What is it? It's a constant dialectical relationship with the yogini, usually, but any deity really. But it's with the yoginis, really. You don't see them and they don't talk to you. It's not voices in your head or anything, but subtle signs and symbols throughout the world that you understand directly correlating to your relationship. And you're also able to engage with them in this kind of consciousness layer way. So through signs and symbols. But it's constant and it's direct in a way. Subtle though, very subtle. That's why people can sort of go away from that. And if you want to just say it's not really a dakini, well, I do believe in dakini, so for me, yes, it can be. If you want to call that a kind of non-dual angel, a seraphim, some other authors have argued that perhaps that is true. I'm not against that, to be honest. But I usually eschew from that kind of Enochian sort of correspondences because I think dakinis themselves are non-dual, they're empty, they already embody what they are. They don't really need I think that obviously as I've said, I'm a Dharma supremacist, so Buddhism to me is the package. So that's what works for me. It makes sense to me. So that's what I'll use also. But so that's basically it, is that I just think. And then you have mukti, which is a kind of liberation from samsara. So that's what you're talking about, Joseph. Or not Joseph, excuse me, Joshua. You're asking me about like liberation from reincarnation. Well, we don't really believe in reincarnation. Reincarnation is much more of an Indian thing. We really believe, well, obviously Buddhism is also Indian, but we believe in rebirth, basically. There's no fixed self. There's no fixed essence. You're Quicksilver. You kind of go through the cycle. Usually we come back as fish. If you want to really understand what Tibetans think, to bring up something that Mike said about not being able to eat raw fish. Well, most Tibetans don't even eat raw fish. Obviously, I'm Chinese, so this is like blasphemy to me because, we're a fish culture, so we love to eat fish. But Tibetans don't eat fish. So they say because fish have so many cycles. And it actually makes sense. If you really think about it in a skillful tantric way, it makes sense. Fish live out many, many cycles. They live and die. And maybe that's also what time is. Time in perception. Time in your mind. Time in the nine. Time in Yesod. Right? Which is in your skull cup. It's in your mind. It's always in your mind. But sometimes there's something else. But most of the time not. So focus on the mind and you'll clear most things. True. I promise. It's true for me too. Yes, Joshua, please go ahead.
I didn't know that about the fish stuff, and that what I find so interesting is there are some subtle parallels between Christ and Buddha, or at least the fig tree and this fish stuff, and just how the teachings are very similar in a way too. And there are rumors I've heard from friends of mine that like he traveled there, and I don't know who learned from who, but they claim, I've heard, that they got their fish culture or diet or something from him because he was a pescatarian or whatever. And I apparently, but there's a lot of fish parables, and there, of course, the Christians would make that sign with their foot which was an arc, 2 arcs, which we always talk about the arc, right? But that's also the Vesica Pisces. And so there's inherently like this relationship. And you were talking about the Gnostics the other day in chat, or DM with me rather. And I was reading about the Sethians, and they were actually adherents of the Barbello, which is like the birthing place of souls or something like that. And I thought that was pretty wild. So I think that's kind of what's maybe being represented as this. So maybe when we're talking about a concept like reincarnation, it's somehow getting to the idea of the where souls come from, and how they return and go back and forth, maybe, or who knows how that works. But that was just something that kind of came to mind because, like I said earlier, like, is there a longer cycle that we're not aware of where souls are kind of harvested? Oh, dude, maybe that's where the train symbolism comes in, because I've always wondered where this occult train stuff comes from, and maybe it's like appointed times, like when souls are moved back and forth as cargo or whatever. But anyway, I didn't want to get too crazy. Thanks.
Okay, well, I have a lot to say, so buckle up, Buttercup. Train symbolism, magic, just a magical experience. It's the constriction of light at Binah. Then you travel on the path between matter and non-matter, flux, because that's what Hesed, or not Hesed, excuse me, that's what Hokmah is. It's a smoky place. It's a bardo. But first you have to travel on that path between Binah and Hokmah, which is a path of fire. So you're burning away the world as you travel on the donkey. That's often how it's depicted in Tantra. Very interesting that Mary is also depicted as riding a donkey. Why is this interesting, Jin? This is interesting because the donkey is called in Tantra the peace-binding Vahana, the peace-binding vehicle. Very interesting, very Mithraic, if you really want to think about it. That's why I fight with the pagans so much. It's not because I care fundamentally what they believe, even if I think it's retarded, personally. It's simply because they're rejecting parts of the Leela that clearly explain parts that they're also talking about. Like, there are paradoxes that arise in the different systems. But once you understand that there's sort of a layer behind it, you can sort of say, oh, actually, this is the part that resolves it. So we talked about this in chat with the 5 meats. This is the whole idea. And fish is a transgressive meat in Indian Tantra. But in Buddhist Tantra, fish is actually transmuted into one of the 8 auspicious signs. So that's also interesting. Of course, it can be used in a tantric way, yes. Why? Who fished in the olden days? I'm talking about like in the monastic days. Say like 700. You're in the jungles of Orisha. There's a Buddhist monastery. They practice tantra. Who's going to fish? It's the Chandalis, the outcasts, people who already practice tantra, who practice secret tantra in the Matrika groves. Talking about the primordial Barbello. Well, who is the primordial Barbello? Of course, it's Chamunda. Very simple. She is the Barboy. She is Ekajati. She is the primordial consort fallen to earth. Head of a wolf. Werewolf goddess, sometimes they say. Yes. And she holds the axis of the swastika as it turns. But we also know that it turns in a non-dual way. We also know that whether you want to believe it or not, the Tibetan sorcerers, they conquered the worldly gods and the higher gods even. All those gods are already dead. Okay, Naga, why are you worshiping them? Don't worry about it. Just keep going. That's what it's saying. So, like, when we're talking about primordial grandmother and why I bring it up so much, even in the spaces, is because I think some people get fixed at one point in the Leela. The whole point is not to be fixed. Be at flux, not fixed. Right? And to get out of samsara, I don't have the fucking answer. If I had the answer, I'd be up there, with the sky wives, like Hawaii, in the clouds, whatever. But what I what Buddhism does say is possible. It's possible in every lifetime, and it's possible right now, and you have to do it. And it cannot be tamasic, meaning it cannot be strictly left-hand path. But tamasic doesn't strictly mean left-hand path. Let's be very clear. It can also mean laziness, eating oily food. Like, there's a lot of tamasic things in the world. The world is largely the carnal ground, tamasic. Just like rajasic things are not inherently evil either. Sex, none of those things, it's not inherently bad. It's just feelings, vibes. But what are they? Are they just desires? Are we grasping at our desires? This is the big problem with Buddhist Twitter. Or, like, not Buddhist Twitter, but like Dharma discourse on Twitter. People are like, oh, Buddhism must reject desire. And we don't reject desire. We just say, well, I'm a tantric, so I don't know about the other Buddhists, so I'll just speak for me. We transmute that into something else. Maybe you don't work on that. Maybe in this lifetime you do white practices. You know, our brother HD from the lodge, he does white practices. He's a very advanced Buddhist. He's much more advanced than me. So what does that say? He does the white practices for his lifetime because he's more advanced. I do red practices because I'm a retard. That's that's the truth. You do more ferocious practices, the more you have to fix. That's why. It's not to do black magic. It's to fix the things that you fucked up. Sorry, Joshua, please go ahead.
Dude, I had some incredible epiphanies. So I've read Dune a few times, okay? But I don't know a lot about Buddhism. So I never understood this thing in the book. Mind you, I'm talking about book 4, God Emperor of Dune. He makes an army of all female people, and he calls them his fish speakers. And he makes a comment when he's talking to his servant. He's like, do you ever wonder why I call them the fish speakers? And I'm like, do tell. But he never does really tell. And I was always like, man. But, he was talking about how they would basically speak to the koi fish. And so for a long time, I was always mystified by that. And so when I heard you talking, I was like, man, maybe there's like all this Buddhism layer to Dune that I've never actually understood. So I'm going to try to go back and read it with what little knowledge I have and see if I can glean anything from it extra. But also, I had another profound thought, and this was when you were talking about the donkey as being the peace binding vehicle that associates also with Mary and Christ. When Christ rode into Jerusalem, I think it was through the East Gate, potentially, I'm not sure. But as he arrived, they all said Hosanna in the highest, which meant, they were hailing their Messiah and laying down palm branches, which I don't know if that has a significance in Buddhism or not. But anyway, the donkey he rode in on, apparently he rented it outside, I guess, and then also rode in on it. And so it got a cross on its back from there on, like a genetic marker, I guess. That's what they say, the legend. So when you see these Jerusalem cross donkeys, they're said to have bared the Christ, which is what the name Christopher means. Um, but then there's also uh, like hadiths or Islamic prophecies about the return of Christ, but they call him Issa. It's the same name as like Joshua or Yeshua or something like that, but in their tongue. And they say that he'll arrive on a donkey. And I just thought it was funny because they all kind of overlap in these weird ways, but I'd never heard the Buddhist stuff. And so again, there's like this fig tree element too that ties really into the two, the parable of the fig tree, which is about the judgment of Israel. We're seeing that unfold now. And then you got the fig tree that brings enlightenment, the Bodhi tree with Buddha. But also Christ curses a fig tree that because it doesn't have fruit. So it's like kind of putting the emphasis on not faith alone, but faith without works is dead, right? So it's like something to be in action, which is very in terms of tarot, like rods, or maybe Gavura applied in a positive way, or maybe mobilizing, like with Hode. But anyway, I didn't want to meander. I just wanted to mention those two profound thoughts that I had because again, synthesis occurred for me, and I had to let you guys know about it.
Thank you so much, Joshua. That's what our spaces are about: synthesis, magic. We're letting the words arise through the aether wave, right? So I know the boys are dying to go. Mike, go first. I saw your hand first. Then I think Joseph, and then Dingbat. Mike, please go.
Okay, so let me. I don't even know if I want to say this, but now that I said that, you probably want to hear it more, which is problemsome. But let me just try to say it in like the least like literal way possible. So the fish stuff was actually very interesting. I didn't know. I mean, there's actually a lot of societies that have these like old belief and just connection with like fish, like getting like knowledge from like fish people or something along those lines, like and there's well what I recently was reading The Serious Mystery by Robert Temple, and he talks about some of these ancient traditions that have been preserved by certain people, in this case the Dogon tribe of Africa. He believes in his book that um, Egypt, or even perhaps society before Egypt, but Egypt knew some type of information just about like the origin of humanity, and some other concepts like of just the deeper aspects of our world. And they somehow were able to preserve that information with the Dogon tribe of Africa, which is, I think I don't know exactly where they're located. I think they're like south of Egypt in Africa. And there's been a lot of studies around them and like with in their connection to Sirius and like the information of like uh, things around that. And I won't say anything more actually because you're just gonna think I'm crazy. But if you're interested, I would just read that book or look up like the Dogon tribe, the serious mystery things on the serious mystery, or what they're called, like the Nome. So that's all I'll say.
I know Joseph's like done. I know all both of them. They're raring to go. I'm sorry. I'm just gonna go really quick, just really quick. I just want to say, Mike, we don't think you're weird. We don't think it's weird. I believe that I believe that the world is an axial system. I think things come and go. The method comes and goes. The wisdom comes and goes. That's okay. Yeah, there is something primordial. There is something to the tree. That's why I like Kabbalah. There's something to Tantra. The Tantra is progressive, whereas Kabbalah is more. Um, it's unified in synthesis, but it's not quite the same. It has more of a fixed nature.
Wait, can I just comment on that real quick? So, I'm not worried about what I like. I feel like you guys will actually kind of get it, but I am just kind of worried in general, because I think with any of these things, if you go too deep, like there is shit just gets really crazy, and I try to stay as like down to earth as possible, but I think some things like you just kind of have to figure out for yourself, and if you say too much, yeah, I mean, other people, I know other people in this chat would believe me, but I don't think, I think some others probably think I'm crazy, and I'm not even worried about that, but I just don't think it's right to say it because it's like, I don't know, I just think the nature of some of this stuff, like it is crazy because it's like you just can't, it's not, some of this stuff you got to figure out on your own.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, I can't really argue with that. I agree, but I think just treat it all speculative. That's what I've always said in every space. Treat it all speculative, all conceptual. Then you can let it go, keep what you want, discard. I'm not saying that's perfect like hermeneutic for all things, but I think in terms of like history, I know Tyrone and I kind of were like we did an episode and we were kind of like, yeah, maybe it is more like that because it really seemed like it's a lot more perspectival than real, maybe, to borrow something Joseph said. So, with that being said, I'm going to let Joseph finally speak.
Thank you, everyone. I just wanted to make a little observation that I just when you guys were talking about the path of the donkey, super interesting. Reminded me of Aesop's fable of the man, the boy, and the donkey, which I think you all know. They're taking the donkey to the market and they're carrying all their stuff. And somebody's like, "Oh, why don't you ride on the donkey?" And the guy gets on the donkey. And then somebody else says, "What? You can't believe you're letting your son walk." And so he's like, "Oh, I'll put the son on the donkey." And then they're like, "Oh, what's the point of like just put all the stuff on the donkey?" And so they ended up, carrying the donkeys to the market, which is the total inverse of what they were setting out to do. And so with Mary riding the donkey and Jesus riding the donkey and this other path of the donkey, it just made me think about will, discernment, getting all the other clutter out of your mind, all the other voices, whether they be internal or external. I've seen that fable in a new light. Please all, please none. Thank you very much.
Obviously, I'm a proponent of that saying, "Please all, please none." I like offense. I think offense is a great defense. I know that's not quite the same thing, but we're being speculative. Okay, I'm sorry, Brother Dingbat. Please go ahead.
Oh, well, I'm by no means any kind of expert or even a novice at Buddhism, as you all know, but I am a fucking nerd, so I can answer that question about Dune from earlier. Something interesting about the Dune universe is that it kind of rejects spiritualism completely, which is interesting because the story takes place in the context of a society that for a time completely embraced orthodox religiosity after they defeated like AI that had basically attempted to enslave all of humanity. But the interesting thing about the series itself is that the primary moving force of the series is trying to create this being that is eventually personified in Leto the Second, who's capable of seeing all possibilities in the future down to a T. Basically because he's able to access. Part of the reason he's able to do this is because he's able to access ego memory. Ego memory is reliant upon this idea in the Dune universe that everything that you are, like you as a person, is locked to your flesh, basically. So, like, your flesh is you. You are your flesh. That is it. There is no spirit. Everything you do in your life is encoded onto your DNA, and it doesn't matter how many generations in the future you go, you still exist. You exist within that flesh still. Like even the barest little sliver of skin on your hand contains the entirety of everything that you do and everything that you are. And so that's basically the gist of it. It's very anti esoteric, anti spiritual in the universe. Everything is locked to recognizing that humans are complex machines, which is something that's played upon in the series repeatedly. With like, after there's no complex computers in the universe, they basically just turn some people into extremely advanced calculators. Like there's those type of people in the series. So like then they basically replace computers as we know them. Like so, Leto the First would go up to, like, I forget his name, but it was one of his right hand men. And he'd say, "I need you to do a calculation about how much this would cost," and he does a quick calculation in his head. It is a very special training in that universe. So I hope that answers your question about that.
Thank you, Brother Ding. Who had their hand raised, Mike? No, I have to go.
No, I didn't.
Oh shit. Okay, that's totally fine. Oh yes, Joshua. I apologize. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I had taken it down, but yeah, I had mine up earlier. So, I just wanted to make a quick comment. I was tempted. I had that thought, like Mike was mentioning earlier, that some things aren't supposed to be said, and I almost didn't say the donkey thing. I felt like that was just something that was supposed to be, written down, which I wrote it down. And then I was like, you know what? No, I want to testify of the spirit, so to speak. And so I voiced it. And then because of that, Joseph then talked about the donkey. So had I not, mentioned that, maybe that wouldn't have happened. I don't know. But it all started, with your mention of the donkey. So I just wanted to share that weird thing because it did cross my mind not to say it. So thanks.
Well, I like that's why we're a discursive space, Joshua. It's how it has to be. You have to speak the words so they can be heard in perception, right? I don't know. I'm not Southern. I don't know how to do it. Okay. Sorry, Mike. Go ahead.
Now I feel like I want to say that. Okay, I'm not saying it from a perspective that like I believe it or that I didn't create it. Like this is just the story behind the Dogon and this star, Sirius, the fixed star, the brightest star in the sky. Like I said, let me preface this again. I don't believe it, but I've read it, and it's an interesting concept to like. I'm like prolonging this, but it's an interesting concept to think about. And it kind of it's really interesting to hear about the Dune stuff because that is so fascinating, and I kind of wish our world was as interesting as that. And this is a crazy theory about our world, supposedly. So the Dogon tribe, they have all of this like advanced astronomical information of just in general, like they advanced astronomical knowledge of how planets operate. That is like before Kepler. So we think that Kepler discovered that like orbits are elliptical, as well as like other instances of um, astronomy. But the Dogon, this tribe, has preserved this information, which has supposedly come from ancient Egypt, or who knows, like a society even prior to that, which tells about some of the mechanics of Sirius. And Sirius is very interesting because um, it has an elliptic orbit, and it's also not comprised of just Sirius. Like there's two parts to it. We call it Sirius A and Sirius B. Sirius A is like the star that is bright, and then Sirius B is like it's the other part of its orbital trajectory, which so like Sirius is not in Sirius and Sirius B are in the middle, like create this elliptic orbit. And Sirius B is a dwarf star that we know now with the technology that we have, and it's more dense than Sirius A, but it's not as bright, so it's heavier. And it because of that, it has like certain mechanics with like the Sirius solar system or whatever. Um, but they knew this, and they call Sirius B Digitaria, and it has like a lot of really important significance with cycles because it's like a 50-year cycle, and that has some core. I don't know exactly what happens with that cycle, but the Egyptians and the Dogon follow it like it's like the central part of their spiritual beliefs. So the crazy part about all of it is not that. The crazy part is how they supposedly received this information. So they supposedly received this information from an alien civilization in the Sirius system. Like, there's supposedly an advanced society of people that are fish people, and they live in the Sirius star system, and they supposedly gave that information to, um, I think, the Egyptians and other past societies because they've talked about it, and there's like weird myths about stories of like merfolk people, and there's weird like just it's been like preserved on certain types of relics of like half fish people, and there's like other information about that, and yeah, like that's pretty crazy. And you can look more into that, but it just opens up your mind a little bit of like what is even going on in the world. And I will say that I do believe in aliens, and I do believe in advanced societies that are more advanced than ours. Do I believe necessarily in fish people that have come to Earth and done all these things? I don't know, but I do. There's like UFO sightings commonly, and I've seen like the CIA talk about their findings of like unidentified flying objects not being of like terrestrial origin. I think that's interesting. That stuff usually gets blown over like a day or week after it comes into the public mind. But and I have no way of confirming any of these things, but I think it's definitely possible that there's species that are more advanced than us, and that they the universe is so big, and that's all I'll say.
Thanks, Mike, and thank you for being intrepid. I appreciate that. I know we pushed you a little, or I did too. I'm glad you did. It's all speculative, right? It's treated as neo-mythologies. Just talking speculatively, science fiction, maybe. Speculative fiction. No problem. I think it's really interesting, and I think that I tend to think of things as processes of consciousness, obviously. And so I think that there is something special about Sirius, but what is Sirius? I think that the planetary bodies, the stars, and all of that, I think they have secret meanings, maybe alchemical meanings, esoteric meanings, separatic meanings. And so that's the way to access them. And that's how people draw forth the aliens or the spirits or the Elohim or whatever the fuck they want to call it. That's what they use. They it's all the same. They're reworking the paths, as Matt would say, right? They're finding different ways up, and then they narrativize the story of how to do that in very specific ways. Something we talk about in the chat a lot is the Mormons. They're very famous for this, repackaging, sort of neo mythologies amidst older ones, and chronopoesis, right? They rearrange the times. It's very interesting from a magical perspective, rearrange it in our perceptions. When we read history, the time is actually different and things happen out of order. But they they position those things into a specific magical formulation. All religions do this. It's not unique to Mormons. Just that Mormons are specifically American, and they all often do this. And they're a neo mythology, meaning that they're constantly forming all the time. It's not really fixed. Like, yes, but they continuously add to the corpus because they have a prophet, a seer, and a revelator who may or may not be the same people all at the same time. Anyways, yes, Joseph, please go ahead.
I want to say, and especially to Mike, that it's not weird at all to think about fish people because we have them. They're right here. We have fish people. We know them as dolphins. I have often heard, like several times, that like dolphins were like on their way to become human. They whatever at that phase was, and dolphins were like, hell no, screw this. We're going back to the water. Fuck it. No way on this land. Yeah, we 100% have fish people. Super intelligent. And what I think is interesting in the like quote unquote like occultness of it is that they are right there hiding in plain sight. Like that's what's occult about it. Is like no one ever would think that, oh yeah, we have fish people, but they're there. Thank you.
Great point, Joseph. And I think that my sort of closing sentiments, well, we'll get ready to close, but I think my closing idea is exactly what Joseph said, because it all comes down to those geo-ontological relations. I know that sounds like some leftoid, decolonial, tranny bullshit. It's not, I promise. It's about how you relate to the phenomena of the carnal ground. That's a much cooler way to describe the same kind of idea. So you see a dolphin, how do you relate to them? Do you think of it just as like an object in space you have no relation to? Maybe you are, in fact, related to it. Maybe you are, in fact, related to the water. Maybe you are, in fact, related to the phenomenological features of where you live. Now, some of you live in cities. Many of you do. That's okay. But you have to you have to also live on the ground that you want to, but you also have to shape the world as you want to. So it doesn't really matter where you live, because that sort of begins and ends in your own mind. Like all your own bullshit. Ding talked about this right at the beginning, like how he processes a lot of information, but it becomes kind of like you have to learn to like work through your demons, I guess. That's a very common parlance way to say, and I think that's a good way. And I think all of these things are processes of consciousness, really. And that's what magic really is. And yes, will. And yes, perception. And yes, love. And I think there, you have the perfect recipe. Middle path, go work it. But I also think it's important to say, like, middle path is not just only deriving from that central pillar, whatever that may be, whatever your perspectival relationship with the tree is at that time. It's also drawing from the other two sides. It's not, right? They're empty spaces. So they're like wells, maybe you could say, that can be drawn from. But you don't want to, be over aggregated when you do. But a skillful mage can draw from both. Bring it together in synthesis. My mouth is dry. Rectify it. And then, you integrate it. You're the vehicle as well as the, palace made of light. Like you're both of those things. So that's why you have to do both, rectify and synthesize. So you can take it where you want to go. Yes, Joshua, please go ahead.
All right. This is going to be an attempt to lasso the entire conversation with. And I'm going to try to tie it into Claymore. Because I know you're closing down. So earlier we were talking about exorcists and also the Hospitaller Templar Knights and that trucker organization. And so it got me thinking about the anime Claymore and what their purpose was. They were these two-handed swordsmen that would be like sent into lands where there were like demons, but these demons actually could mask themselves as like people. So if they ate somebody because they had eaten the imprint of that person, they had the like genetic material, I guess, kind of like we were talking about with the Dune thing earlier. Well, they could then change into that person. And so when that would occur, the claymores would come into town and dispatch them. Anyway, I didn't want to get too into the weeds with that, but the reason I bring that up is because in this anime, to become a claymore, first of all, they can only do it with women, because if they do it with a man, they'll lose control of the abilities that are woken up by eating this demon flesh, which is kind of like soma or something like that. Reminds me of these five meats and stuff, and potentially, and of course, so they morph into this thing called a claymore, right? And so then they can deal with these what are called yomas, which are like these demons or something or other. Well, it turns out they're all being created by something called the organization, and I couldn't help but wonder how that general term reminded me of just the corporation, and how corporations themselves are corpses that are given life. And we've kind of talked about that before, how these are like egregores and such. And so I had never seen Claymore from such a wide perspective and, 10,000 foot perspective or whatever. So I'm going to, find it and watch it again, or maybe even read the manga, because for me it was very compelling, because I hadn't really thought so much about all this stuff because I was very young when I watched it. But anyway, I just wanted to make one more comment: is that each of the claymores, when they are activated by eating this yoma flesh, they get abilities that are unique to them, and it kind of reminds me, you mentioned it earlier, Siddhis, and so I wondered if maybe that was another possible reason why some people might do these rituals, is the attainment of siddhis or something like that. But anyway, I didn't want to meander too much. But if anybody knows about Claymore, I'd be happy to hear a little bit about it.
Okay, thank you so much, Joshua. And I know that I pumped up your Claymore talk, and then I barely gave you time to do so. Apologize. We'll just do it on my show. I knew it when you said it. I was like, I'm obsessed with this manga. This anime is perfect. we'll discuss this as a whole episode, and I'll finally be able to enter the weebdom. Not that Monty has been super generous with his like overtures into the weebdom, but I haven't really been invited on any of those podcasts yet. So I have to raise my stature. So Joshua, help me. Yes, sorry, brother Ding. Go ahead.
Well, we do have an episode lined up for Gantz, which is going to be fantastic.
Well, I'm glad that's happening. I'm so glad to hear that. That is true. We do have an episode lined up for Gantz. We've got a lot of ideas. I mean, like, if Ding and I sat down together, we could probably pump out like 10 episodes. That's the problem. I'm going to bring you back up right now, Joseph. I saw that. Anyways, I know I kind of shortened our. Not really. We went 2 hours, 2 full hours. That's like very solid live stream, I think. We are going to try and start live streaming them, I think, to YouTube. As I don't know if we'll be able to do it here and there, but I think it'll be really cool, and I hope that people will migrate with us if we can't do it in both places. But we can definitely stream it to YouTube, so that will. Yeah, I know it's not quite the same, but I'll try and. Obviously, I know what the spaces are, so I know that making sure that everybody feels heard, seen, invited in is really important, and also because I always say like we're in consent. So if we do that move, which we might do, we've been talking about it. I think it would be really cool. I think we'd get numbers. To be honest, I'm just being honest. I'm not being funny or self-aggrandizing, and I'm not really, but I like to use it as a tool, right? Yes, brother Ding, please go ahead.
Well, I'm super excited for the future. This is so much fun, and I really enjoy your show, of course. I just wanted to say, my wife is calling me, so I got to get running. But this was a major pleasure. I've always wanted to make it to one of these in full. So,
thank you, brother. Appreciate it. Say hi to the kid. We love to see it. Honestly, awesome. Isn't it great that we can just do this? Gonzo fucking Trucker Radio. Friday nights. Pretty cool. Talk about magic, aliens, I guess, fish people, purposes, and porpoises. Many splendored things. Claymore. What else? I mean, we talk about every fucking thing on here. I say way too much about podcasting. I say way too much about other people, but I think my logos is through the allegory. I think that's what is strong with me. I'm just kidding. I don't know. Thank you, Rage. Thank you so much. Appreciate you, brother. That's our lodge member, Rage. Thank you. I'm sorry I didn't shout him out. He came to a full space today. That was great. Yes, Joshua, please go ahead.
I guess what I probably should have mentioned earlier then was this one last thing relating to like cannibalism in general is that in some cultures it was seen as abhorrent. And so in Greek culture, for instance, the gods always resemble humans, right? So to them, one of the worst things that you could do is eat a human. And so there's a story, I think is maybe Tantalus is his name, but it was a man who wanted to get revenge on the gods for something. Somehow he had beef with them, right? And so at one point, I think he kills his own son and serves him to the gods for dinner or whatever. And he's found out, so they don't all eat it. But there was one goddess, Ceres. Ceres is Demeter. She's the one that lives in the underworld. And so that's kind of the part of the explanation for why she resides in the underworld, is that maybe there is some type of transgressive property here with the human meat, that had the Olympians eaten of the meat, they all would have fallen, right? Maybe, or something like that. And so I just found that story interesting. Now, the part of the body that she ate, or she took a bite, she didn't devour all of it, but it was the shoulder, I think, of Pelops. And so it made me think, like, all of a sudden, I was like, oh man, is that where the term giving the cold shoulder to somebody means? Because, like, you normally think just turning your back on somebody, right? But really, it might actually be serving them human meat without them knowing it, or something wild like that. Anyway, thanks for letting me mention that, because I didn't know where else I'd be getting to talk about cannibalism.
I mean, that's the space. It's funny. I really did plan to like discuss corpse sadhana like quite in depth, as well as listen to you discuss Claymore and then add in my own, speculative ideas. But we didn't. But you know what? It turned out great. Turned out fucking awesome. I mean, this was exactly what it should have been. And that's what I like about the spaces. They constantly surprise me in how dynamic they are. They're node, they're an Ipsos. Remember, the Aeon has, like, you could say 3 words. Ipsos is one of them, but it's not the only one. So, if we can do that for 2 hours, 2.5 hours, sometimes we go 3 hours. That's a little long for me, I'm not going to lie, but I think that having the co hosts really do help. I think it really helps me because I got really burned out doing those like stream of consciousness, like multi-hour. But it was really crazy and fun. And like I said, I built the corpus. I built the body, and then from the body can come the foundation, and then that was the Grey Lodge. And then now that this is us. Like you're the Grey Lodge. Joshua, Mike, Joseph, everyone. It's kind of cool. That's like, the Babylon story, like where, the fallen corpse of Babylon is the body of the world. Of course, that's true. But, what's interesting is the daughter gets to arise from the ashes. So she's not the same as the mother. Something remade, reborn, you could say. Very cool. Okay, yes, Percy, do I know you? Are you an alt of someone? It's a very angular PFP. I know a lot of people who are into angles, so. Joseph Reed, please go ahead.
Thank you. And this will be my last one because I have to get on the road. But something that Joshua said just totally made me think of regarding the cannibalism, and I had meant to say this earlier. It's interesting that you're talking about the Greek myths because the mythological times, those myths that are from the mythical structure of consciousness, which is the structure of consciousness that mutated from the magical structure of consciousness. And the tribes in like uncontacted New Guinea or in Peru, not anymore because nothing is uncontacted. Like they are embedded in this other form of consciousness. So it's not lower. It's just, it's more like everything is kind of connected to each other. Whereas the Greeks had moved into like a different structure of consciousness. So something like that, when a kind of leap or mutation is made, there's also a bit of a negation of what came before it. So it's not, it doesn't surprise me that the Greeks would like absolutely abhor anything that had to do with cannibalism. So super interesting. I want to thank everyone in Lodge. It's really super fun to be able to do this. And thank you, Jin, for being and everybody. And thank you for your time. Have a great night.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Joseph. Dr. Joseph Reed, McLuhan Chair, the Grey Lodge. Amazing. Tolerates us, but I thought actually, Joseph, I know you're going, and if you drop, that's okay. But he sent me a paper on alternative. Well, the paper's not only on alternative Kalachakra, but it's a large part of the sort of overarching thesis. So I thought this was interesting because a lot of what Joshua brought up today, too many J's, what can I say? Just in our lodge, that's just a joke, okay, calm down. But anyways, Joshua, I thought that it actually had a lot to do with a lot of things you talked about, like turning of the wheel and like what direction people are turning. I guess that's where I wanted to go, maybe to close, is like not everywhere is turning the same way because some places are stuck on their piece of the Leela. That's conceptual. That's in your mind. That has nothing to do with aliens. But I'm not saying they're not real either. I'm not dismissing any of those things. I'm just saying, what story do you believe in? That's more, I'm asking as a more existential question. Like, what is the story you believe in? because that can be the story that is the wheel turning for you. But what if I told you that the stories actually make more sense together? That there is a constant kind of rectification and dissolution and remediation and coming back together and resynthesis, and someone fucks it up. And that's really the story of humanity, much more than, oh, we're disparate and, we're just different race. I don't know. What do they say? The different, like, they're very theosophical now, where everyone's very theosophical in their ideas, like root races and like magical abilities based on that. And like, I'm not saying it's not true-ish, but I don't really like that framework, to be honest. I'm being honest from my perspective. So for me, I think of all those things as just being conceptual fetters, things that are meant to trap you in low ideas, klipas, vessels. But not vessels as in cool names and ideas and stories that help you, actually things that weigh you down, that aggregate you. I'm not saying believe in nothing. I'm not a nihilist in any way. I'm not anti-God. I believe in God. Accept that. No problem. I know it's all so wild because, like, how can I be? Well, I can be a tantric and I can be a Buddhist and we believe all these things, so it's no problem, really. Just as long as you can resolve the paradox, it doesn't matter what I do. Right? Like, I can't control what you believe. I can't control what you do. I just suggest ideas, but you have to do as you will. And, I give you the aeonic seeds, and, just listening to them is a kind of skillful thing, a process. That you're hearing a story that is about redemption. It's about being agential. It's about love and will and life and engaging with the material world as you understand it, and also engaging with higher noetic or Solar's. I know I shouldn't have cited him so much. He's going to be like, this is cringe as fuck. But anyways, it is what it is. He is my, he has been my co-host for a long time. I have to, like, a lot of ideas I derive through conversation with him. So that's why. As well Joshua, as well Mike, as well Joseph. I always cite them all. I try. And I realized that I said something funny on our Toby episode. I said, I believe in standpoint epistemology. But it's not that I'm a feminist, and I don't even believe in feminist frameworks of, like, reality. I think it's bullshit. But I like standpoint epistemology because I think you should try and credit the voice of someone who said something if we're doing kind of this public intellectual, weird, pseudo, talk am, whatever, radio. We have to be able to cite each other in a specific and ourselves in specific ways. That's why I like it. It's nothing to do with feminism. It's nothing to do with, all those frameworks. I just lifted what I think is a pragmatic and useful idea from some dipshit idea. I don't know. You don't have to like it. I'm just saying that maybe this is okay. Maybe this is kind of as we made an argument, maybe this is the aetherpunk way. Lifting frameworks, not being fixed, and being able to, dance with the cycle rather than be stuck on one, eternalist story. And I think this is something you brought up, Joshua, is about what keeps us in samsara, what keeps us in the lower worlds, if you want to think in a more Kabbalistic way. But Hod and Netzach have all the potential of the higher worlds. Like I've always said, we are so lucky to be reborn as humans, to change your agents of your own karma. That's very profound if you think about it. You have the choice. Of course, it's a choice, but you have the choice. You have the choice to change it. You can, and I'm not saying you're going to be like, it's like your instant, whatever, samadhi fire from your third eye. But yeah, in every lifetime you get the chance, and like you should cultivate that. That's the most important thing. Just do Dharma now. And when I say Dharma, yeah, I'm being more expansive. But it's a largely American audience. I know we have people from all over the world in our lodge and also in this room right now. And maybe that's Christianity for you. And if that is great. And I always say that, like, it's fine. But you have to also understand there is an esoteric layer. You have to also acknowledge there's a Kabbalistic layer. It's not, that's why I hate that. I reject all the framings of, like, about the Jays. Just, it's not because that it's even wrong. It's simply because that it's weaponized. It's weaponized. Like, why would Matt and I be called Jays all the time? Like, when we were first doing the Kabbalah spaces, it was ridiculous. We should be able to host Kabbalah spaces if we so choose. We weren't even talking about anything political. Yeah, we had kind of like a right wing, cool bro bent, but it wasn't like, trust me, it was very middle pillar, bodhicitta, loving kindness, Hesed maxing the whole time. Was definitely not like, what people think it is. And so I just think that that's not a useful framework. And so we have to move beyond thinking of things in such limited capacities. And we have to be more expansive and embrace that there is an esoteric layer, embrace that there is a psychic layer, embrace that the idea of consciousness is probably the primary mediating and also governing factor of this world. So that also means that the archons are in your own mind rather than a projection outwards. And this doesn't mean that just because this is like secret knowledge, or that is suddenly you'll be able to conquer it. No. Every moment. That's the whole thing about, you want to talk about Time King, Mahakala, Shani, all that? Yeah, that's what the Time King is. He's in control of every minute of his own fucking time. Every perception of his own consciousness. That's why he holds a Kabbalah and a Kartika. Because only he can choose to turn his own mind. Only him. Right? He is the wheel of time, but he's also, quote unquote, a god. But he's not really. It's like the idea, it's the vessel, it's the form, it's the real thing, it's the process of consciousness, it's the Sirius, the star god. I mean, yeah, you could definitely say that for him. Or a form, at least. So, Kalabhairava, the little boy riding a black dog. It's very serious. Just is, and so is the daughter with her dolls. Just be dancing. Just be in flux. That's all it is. Just gave you a kind of neo-mythological package, but you can take of it what you will of it. If you like surfing better, then use that metaphor. No problem. You like Marvel movies? I think Marvel movies are shitty. I hate them. I think they're brainwash. Bullshit propaganda. So I choose not to engage with them. That's my choice. I don't look down on anyone for doing whatever they want. Because how can I? I'm not the master of my own time or my own mind. Yes, Joshua, please go ahead.
I decided. Anyway, I took it down, and then after you said the dog thing, I was like, "Oh, all right, I got to do this." Earlier, when Shin was here, I wanted to ask him because he spends so much time on the road, and he was talking about the highway hypnosis trance kind of ability that you get after hours on the road. And I was wanting to ask him about the black dog. It's like some type of culture, subculture, myth, or whatever that's related to trucking. It's like, I guess when you drive too long, you start seeing the black dog. Anyway, but he's not here now. So anyway, we'll have to ask him about that. But I just wanted to make a quick comment. You said people were like hating on you for practicing Kabbalah or whatever. And so, like if I get called a Jew, I just take it as a compliment, right? Because you're supposed to be known by your fruits. So if you're doing something that makes people hate you, just remember, like Christ said, that if you belong to the world, they would love you. And if you follow me or serve me, they'll hate you because they hated me first. So I know that not everybody here is a Christian, but if you're being fruitful at any degree whatsoever, you're probably going to catch some hate. So let's just let those be words of encouragement.
Thank you, Joshua. That was actually beautiful. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. I agree, and we didn't let it bother us. Just like Matt's young. He was like 22 at the time. I'm not using magic number. That's really how old he was a year ago. And so I just thought it was unfair. I thought it was unfair people who I thought were my actual friends, that I was in group chats with, that I would speak to, Just thought, wow, like maybe that's the real suppression of knowledge. Like they don't. What's the big deal? I'm trying to like. We talked about a Dion Fortune book. Like that's bad. It seems kind of crazy to me because there are so many like esoteric posters, esoteric YouTubers. Maybe not so many esoteric podcasters. It's kind of more of a limited scope, but yeah, they exist. But like, you don't. How often do you really hear people talk about Kabbalah like the ways that we do? Talking about traveling through the Sephira, the qualities, the densities, the colors, especially, for me, particularly Joshua, but you talk about maybe more the words, talking about clearing klipas, skandhas, saying you don't have to worship those things. Yeah, we presented it totally differently. We repackaged an old thing and we said maybe this is the more pragmatic way to look at it. So I'm fine that they called us names and did all that. That's fine. It just is funny because I see a lot of people who are sort of like ex dissidents, we'll call them post dissidents, talking about things that we talked about 6 months ago, a year ago. I'm not saying we were like, yeah, I mean, I did say we were pretty cutting edge always. I have always maintained that, and I do believe that. And it's good. I think it's good. People need to increase in their esoteric consciousness. That doesn't mean parapolitics necessarily. It doesn't mean conspiracy culture, and it doesn't mean, aliens rule the world either. In the sense that, like, don't let the institutional sort of forces like govern your perceptions. Sort of be more dynamic than that. Be more agential. And I think this is also interesting just about the Temple of Set stuff. Like, I had no fucking idea what Temple of Set was like a year ago, 2 years ago. I mean, I kind of did, but not really. I mean, probably more than the normie. Definitely more than the normie, but not fundamentally. And then I started to see, okay, they're talking about the self. Like, yeah, I have differences, totally differences. We have a different framework. That's fine. I recognize and I think that they have an interesting framework too, just like I think Christianity is a really interesting framework. It's no problem for me. Just hold it conceptually. I don't have to like adhere to any morality or value that they place on it. I just have to, maintain my own Samara vows. It doesn't matter. I can't control it. But I can also look at it and find it interesting and not let other people's judgments of it, cloud my own preconceptions, my own ideas, my own ability to grasp the Kabbalistic system that a lot of them, well, particularly some of them, were writing about. Like, why shouldn't I have access and understand and try and discern for myself? That's what I've always said about the spaces. That's what it's about. It's like you need to engage with those noetic processes, borrowing the word from solar, but that is what true knowledge is. Like, that's what you want to talk about, dath maxing? That's dath maxing. It's when you're engaged in wisdom science as a practice and as an actual, like, process of consciousness, when you're thinking through these problems. Yes, of course you can be really good at Hegel and be really good at Kabbalah. Meaning that, like, you don't need Kabbalah if you're really good at some of the Hegelian ideas. But Hegel himself practiced Kabbalah. So just because Hegel was good at it doesn't mean that that is the full encapsulation of what those ideas are, which are so fucking profound that people who fear them or put klipas around them, fundamentally, that is the kind of obscuration, the occultation. Because even just studying it, your consciousness changes. Just like seeing different lights, everyone talks about, we always talk about this. Seeing the different densities, the different ways the light reflects off the water, the different ways the light reflects off the earth, the different, the qualities of fire, having a stambanam, or the kind of like stunning quality, heatless from afar, something Nick said that I always thought was super profound. He didn't quite say it in that way, but he said, yeah, flame is heatless when you're far away. I was like, yeah, actually it is. That's like a very interesting way to posit that relationship between Gevra and Hesed. Because it is moving. Hesed and Gevra aren't fixed. They're switching all the time, Jupiter and Mars. It's in and out like the breath. Water and fire coming together and moving away. just like the extremities, just like how blood moves in the body. Because where does Jesus point? And you don't have to be Christian. It doesn't have anything to do with that. He's pointing to his heart in that image I like so much, the Sacred Heart. Because that's where that process happens. Hesed and Gevurah together in the golden vessel, in your heart. Prepare the vessel for emptiness. What is emptiness? It's not nothingness. I'm not a Muslim. I'm never going to say that. I'm being serious. And also kidding, but serious. It's luminousness and masslessness in the vast expanse. Buddhism 101. So, anyways, that was a pretty cool, I think, ending. Very epic. I want to say thank you to everybody. Thank you to the brothers who are here and not here. Obviously, Joshua and Mike. Thank you so much. Let me just do Mike first. I'll give Mike so much praise that it'll be hard to follow up Joshua, but I'll be able to do it with you. First of all, Mike, thank you so much. You pushed yourself. Appreciate it. You did a great job. And I honestly couldn't be happier. And everyone knows I'm like very particular about the group chat and about the lodge and the spaces and maybe a little bit of a control freak, but not really. But at least at first, because I had to be able to like level it up to the place where I was like, yeah, then I can let go. So you slotted right in. I hope you keep coming. You're very valued. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. And amazing. Go win lots of money, hopefully, speculatively. Joshua, thank you so much. Thank you for giving me so many chances. Thank you for being a great podcaster. Thank you for being my friend. And thank you for being in the lodge, helping us run it, helping us do things, think of things in different and interesting ways. Thank you to Brother Solar. Okay. You got enough praise. Okay. Matt is great. I think Matt is like, I love Matt, so there we go. And then obviously Monty. Monty's my homie for a long time, so he knows that I appreciate him and think he's very smart. And he is very smart and very shrewd, and he doesn't always reveal it. He's very fox-like in that way. So I see you, Monty, and I appreciate it, and I'm down with it. So I want to say special thank you to Tyrone. Thank you so much, Tyrone. That was really cool that you jumped in and came, as well as Mario. To have bigger creators like think you're cool, or at least like want to hear what you have to say. Yeah, it is very flattering, and I appreciate it very much. John, of course, as our co-host, who I sent an invite like 50 times. I did. Nobody can say, Jin forgot, Jin talked too much, he's made it about himself. I sent him a lot of invites. He didn't accept them because he's probably not even near his computer. He's probably studying or doing something else and having us on as ambient background noise, which he always does. So anyways, thanks, John. But he is a great astrologer, and if you do want to have a reading by John, which is by donation, which means you have to pay him, but you can sort of figure that out with him. You can go to his links, and it's all there, and his Ko-Fi is there, and he's a great astrologer. He really is. And he's becoming quite a good magician, and he just keeps that more close to his chest. So thank you so much. Obviously, Avi, longtime member, great cheerleader for me personally, sent me a very, she told me, she said, well, you put on your game face in the ways that I have to do. So, yeah. Let's fucking go. Thank you so much, Avi. Really appreciate it. Percy, thank you so much, Percy. Very much appreciate it. I never know who these locked alt accounts are, if they're alts or if they're other people, or if I know you or if I don't know you. Anyways, it's great. Thank you so much for coming. Appreciate you, Percy. I see we're mutuals, I think, so we're all good. Cassandra, content creator. Gnostic, Kabbalah, tarot, fortune cards, jewelry. Check out Cassandra. She has a great series on Lilith. I can't even speak. She has a great series on Lilith astrology the meteorite or asteroid. I'm sorry, I did listen to them, Cassandra, so I do know it's an asteroid. Yes, Lilith Astrology. So please go listen to those. Check them out. They're really great. Cassandra is also in our. She is an honorary lodge member, but I didn't add her to the group chat because I'd actually like to stay friends with Cassandra, and I fear that one of my impolitic words would probably ruin that. But yeah, but she is part of our lodge in the greater sort of expanse of that. So of course we have. Oh fuck. We have Zachary Shumar. I'm sorry, I almost called you Joshua the Branch. I don't know what the fuck I was thinking. Zachary Shumar, who is my co-host to Threshold Saints, has appeared many times. We have done a very great. I know, Zach. Okay, but we did a really great episode on Don Don that did not get its due because I was in like that crazy mindset. So I want to just plug that. It's a really awesome episode that I'm really proud of. I think it's episode 36 or 35, somewhere in there. It's called Who Killed Ken Takakura, which at that moment was perhaps a relatively contentious title. But honestly, I didn't even think about any kind of implication of it. I thought it was funny compared to the show we had just watched. So, but I still like that title. I'm really glad. I love the art. I'm glad I used it. I think it's a great show, and we're gonna do a season 2. Zach and I, and someone else. Someone else asked me to do a Don Don, so we'll have to bring on Vicky, redacted vampire, friend to me, friend to Threshold Saints. I just recorded with Vicky on Final Fantasy VIII. So yeah, give me a month on that one, but yeah, it's coming. Obviously, thank you, Kimi Take-san. Thank you, Kimi Take-san. I appreciate it. Arigato gozaimasu. Thank you so much for coming. Awesome. It's cool. I don't know if you're an alt, if you're a Kiko's alt, if you're one of our other brothers alts, who knows? I never know. I'm so out of it. I'm such a Luddite. Bibliomancer, thank you so much. Much obliged. One of our great lodges now, a mutual of mine, and now a lodgy. And also, Joshua did cede to my request that we include you on a 2-part Dark Souls / Elden Rings episode. So, Bibliomancer, fuck yeah. Good job. Then we have Frenzy, who I would love to get on my show or as a co-host. Legit. But I haven't quite worked up to him. I know he's like a newer dad and all that, and yeah. But, Frenzy's our Dharma brother as well as our Lodge brother. And although he's not super active on Twitter, it does bring me great comfort, as I said at the very beginning, to sort of surround myself with people who like my ideas, and engage with them, and also like want to move in the cycle with us. So, Frenzy, thank you so much for coming. I know you came back for this, pretty much. I appreciate it. Really, I do. It means a lot to me. Mookie, Crowface Zucchini, thank you so much for coming. All the way from Germany, transcending space and time on the app called X. In the spaces. What can we say? Saint to the birds. Thank you so much. Merci beaucoup. Ihaye, Asher, Ihaye. Thank you so much, Lodge member. I'm getting better, right? I know. I'll start fucking up Hebrew next week, so then I can't get the J rumors anymore. DeMorgan, thank you so much. Appreciate you. Really glad that you came. That you, I can't believe you stayed. It was. I hoped it wouldn't be too weird for you. Obviously, Brother Ding, spoke, and I'm glad. And yeah, you're always welcome. Legit, always welcome. We're not that weird. We're not. We don't conduct any. I don't teach them how to skyfly just yet. But yeah, thank you so much. So DeMorgan is a great poster who is in Monty's Weeb chat, and I know him from that, and I really like him, and so weebdom for the win. Rainbow Wari. Okay, cool. Welcome. Thank you so much for coming. Appreciate you. Also want to shout out Brother Dingbat, obviously, our trucker brother. Brother Ram. Brother Ram is actually in my territory. Well, not really, because Singapore really is just Southeast Asia. So let's be honest. But he's in Indonesia right now, and he's sending us lots of beautiful kino for our group chat. So we appreciate that. Ram is quite a good photographer, to be honest, and a good poet as well. And he's been writing in Tamil. So I better step it up. I'm not that good in Chinese to be able to write poetry, though. I try, but kind of sounds shitty. Anyways, I'll keep working on it. I think that's it. Who else do we have that we pretty much had everyone. We Akiko, Shakti, our Japanese Zucchini. Shout out to her, obviously, if she re-listens to this. I think that's it. And so everybody go forth in loving kindness, infinite expanse of space, ride the lightning, and surf the wave. Because that's all there is, really. You treat each other as much as you can with loving kindness and respect. But that doesn't mean that you have to bow down to, ideological divisions. Like, nobody can demand respect from you. Nobody has to agree with you, right? We've all learned this. As Joseph said, it's the decoherent time. So be fucking decoherent. But make up your own mind for yourself. You're an agent of your own will, but it is love over will as well. So try and play with those polarities. Until next week, Magi, everybody, peace out.